into traffic hour properly. Talk to us. Where are you stuck? Where have you found a good route? Let's share that, shall we, this morning? SpiceFM KE on Twitter. Text 40127.
This is The Situation Room, the home of hard-hitting political commentary and penetrating insights about the state of the nation. This is a talk radio experience like no other. The Situation Room, a place for hard truths, debates, and elevated conversations. The Situation Room, witty, political, engaging, deep, controversial. In the room, we have C.T. Muga, researcher, academic, seasoned political observer, a fountain of wisdom in these politically uncertain times. Ndu Oko, Nigerian by birth, Kenyan by choice, communications expert, Pan-Africanist, a truth seeker and believer in people power, and Eric Latif, agent provocateur, the man in the chair, seasoned journalist, news hound, a man who believes in punching up, not down. This is The Situation Room, the only way to start your day.
How you doing? It's Wednesday, the 23rd day of June 2021. Just a few days to the end of this financial year. Have you received all the money that you need to receive if you're a government agency? If you haven't, it's okay, don't worry. We'll just chalk it down as your poor absorption rate. Welcome to The Situation Room. Wanjiru Gikonyo is here with us today, alongside C.T. Muga and Nduoko. So let's start with Wanjiru. Good morning.
Good morning, Eric.
Last time you were here, I wasn't.
Yes, your absence was felt.
This thing of you sneaking in like that.
I did not sneak in. And CT took full liberty to make me feel right at home.
Very good.
In your absence, yes, CT was very forceful in making his views. And I wondered, Eric.
So you felt right at home?
I felt right at home.
Ulikatiwa hata kaplot pale kwa karibu na mto?
Ilienda hivyo. Yes.
Yeah, good.
Yes.
Welcome.
Thank you very much.
Ndu?
Good morning.
Good morning to you.
How are you?
Did you have this hair yesterday?
Yes, I did.
Oh, yeah.
Eric, did you have these eyes yesterday?
No.
Okay, just ask them.
They didn't
CT,
say
you're
that.
quick on
Where
your
were
feet
you?
Today, this morning.
Where were you?
Were you looking like this yesterday?
Bas.
How is that exactly? How is that?
How, the way you're looking today?
Which
No,
is?
no, just go with the flow. Eric,
I need adjectives.
If you're giving a compliment,
I need adjectives.
give a compliment.
No, I'm actually asking. This
If
is
I
not a
looked like this
compliment.
yesterday.
Yes.
Oh,
Did
how
you
you
have
make
a
I
hair-
talk now? I don't understand
Did
it
you have
yet.
the same hairstyle yesterday?
I did.
I seem to have missed it.
Apparently.
Okay. I always like your hair.
Why, thank you, sir. There you go.
Hey, that's working hard for a
Edible.
compliment. Sneaking in there, trying to be a compliment.
How are you, Eric?
Yeah, I'm well. City, how are
wow. Moving
know,
on.
Amidst everything that's happening, I don't have an alternative. I have to be
you?
fine.
You're fine.
Yes. I mean, what choice do I have in this matter? I have to be fine. I mean, it begins by people talking about me as though I'm not here. And I'm actually here. And more, I can actually hear what they're saying.
And if you were just to reach over just a little bit, you could actually touch the other.
Yes,
individual.
yes.
Testing the waters.
Yes.
It's called testing to see
I
where
mean,
is CT today.
It isn't like these movies we used to watch in black and white when we were kids. When you're advising the guy, because you've seen the movie before, that he's behind you. Watch this guy. No, okay. But I'm fine, Eric, now that you ask.
Good. Welcome. We'll have several conversations today. So at 7, what are we going to be discussing, Wanjiru?
We're discussing a recent court action because one of the issues we discuss often here is what can we do in the face of impunity.
Yep.
And there's yet another court case against the SGR, this hallmark project that will mark this administration. There's yet another court action by citizens, and we'll be discussing that. And we'll be joined by the chair of Muhuri, and he will help us understand what has driven them to court yet again.
Okay. What do they want in court?
It's access to information, demanding the contract. Show us the contract.
Oh. Where?
That contract.
Okay.
Ile.
Where?
Ehe.
Where?
Bila mchezo.
Yeah.
And there's a history, behind this court action. Since 2019, Muhuri has been on the forefront. Heled, actually, who we'll be speaking to, has been on the forefront of chasing it up. So we have a constitutional right. But rights aren't just given. When somebody is benefiting because you're not enjoying your right, you do not just get that right.
Yeah.
So since 2019, there's been a series of actions taken that have culminated in this court case, and we're going to hear what those are.
All right. 8 o'clock.
Right, so 8 o'clock we'll be talking with Transparency International, quite a number of things. I'm sorry, not Transparency International, International Justice Mission, looking at delayed justice in the country. Quite a number of cases have not had their day in court, quote unquote, and in court, literally. So there are quite a number of families who are, in distress. Can we know what's going on? Are we getting our family member back? Are we going to know what the results of some of these cases are? So we'll be joined by them to look at some of these and find out, so what's going on and how can we get justice for a lot of these cases that are pending.
And also we will hear from a whistleblower at 9.
At 9 o'clock.
Yes. And this is from what?
So we heard this story coming out of the Masai Mara University last year about the grand pilfering of funds. And the accountant in the university is telling us about the theft that continues to happen to date. And he's lost or about to lose his job, basically for what he has said. But he's saying, you know what, no holds. And I'm going to continue to tell you what's going on. I have evidence to the letter of what's going on. And so he was talking to us today. And tomorrow is World Whistleblower Day.
What I'd like to observe, though, and this is, in my mind, what is really telling, is the response that not just the university's reaction can be predicted. They'll want to sack him, they will threaten him, that can be predicted. But how Kenyans respond to whistleblowing? Because this is someone who's taken the bold step of doing this thing. We keep asking, what can be done? He has done it. He has seen, he looked, he was in a place, and he said, no, folks, this one, it is wrong, and he has called it wrong and has continued to call it wrong.
Yeah.
Now, what I'd like to see, if other Kenyans are able to actually accept wrong for what it is and call it out and call it what it is. Say, this is wrong. There's no mollycoddling it. There's no giving it a nickname.
And even in the face of what would be danger, he's saying, look, I'm still going to keep showing you what is happening even today. A lot, like you're saying, a lot of folks will say, okay, well, I've said so much, and I'm going to step back. But he's saying there's more.
But then also, the other state agencies that deal with such matters, they're in the spotlight as well. What do you do when somebody...
Protect.
Yes. And then how do you protect them? When they present you with these things, what do you do?
Yeah.
Yes.
So the World Whistleblower Day is today.
It is today, I beg your pardon.
Okay.
Yes.
So, by some nice, good coincidence, or maybe by planning, today is World Whistleblower Day, and today is also World Public Service Day.
Good. Eric, you clever person.
Okay.
World Service Day?
And whistleblower.
Public
Service
Day.
Day.
So it's World Whistleblower Day on Public Service Day.
Remembering our public service has been marked by official secrets, which the new constitution seeks to overturn. So, yes.
And whistleblowers will mostly be shedding a spotlight on public service. So let's start with COVID-19 in numbers quickly, and then we take a break.
Okay, sure. Quite a lot of things happening with COVID, and I can just go through them as quickly as possible. So yesterday, if we're looking at the globe in terms of numbers, 368,254 cases of COVID were found around the world. And the highest numbers, Brazil with 86,000, India with 54,000, and the United States with 11,000. A month ago, India had a third of the cases that the US has. Today, India is only behind by 4 million cases. India now has 30 million cases of COVID, the US at 34 million, and the numbers have dropped significantly, but we're still looking at about a third just over 250,000 cases coming out of the world yesterday. And of those, the majority, almost 80% are from these 3 countries.
Sandu, let me ask, is it that someone reduced the rate of infection in their country or somebody just maintained the high rate that they had? What is it that has brought about this? Because clearly somebody has caught up with the rest of the world in reducing the numbers. Someone seems to have actually stayed exactly where they were. How do we read this?
Oh, I mean, if you look at the United States, for example, I still till date where you get to find out one major thing that they did to curtail the spread of COVID. It was always dilly-dallying with directives here and there. Shall we not? Let's open, let's not. So they've always been able to remain at that space where they have been the country with the highest number of cases. And then we see these other 2 countries, India and Brazil. It was okay. Maybe COVID will, especially in Brazil, COVID is a threat out there without realizing the danger it posed in here. And you had a president who was just not ready to do anything. And then you see the high proliferation of this disease. India, on the other hand, did what they did in the very beginning, but then they went ahead to have, this celebration that is a yearly celebration, and that is actually then what sparks. So you can see that the spikes can be attributed to something, and they were major in these 3 countries. The Olympics are happening, and very quickly, Tokyo 2020. Does Japan have COVID under control? The Ugandan team arrived, for example, in Tokyo, and then have had to go into quarantine because one of them had tested positive for COVID-19. Remember that there was also a lockdown, 42 days, that has been imposed in Uganda. But now, Tokyo is receiving athletes into the country, right? But some of them are already testing positive. So the questions are, what is going to happen with the Olympics? And the games have not yet begun, but people are coming in and teams have already started to be quarantined. What is going to happen with the games? Those are questions that are rife right now. So Kenya will receive a share of Biden's 55 million COVID vaccine donation.
Repeat
Eric,
that again?
this should make you happy.
No, I want you to repeat that, please, so that I'm sure I've heard the right thing.
Kenya, Inchi, will receive a share of Biden's 55 million COVID vaccine donation.
What share?
Okay. Kenya is among the countries that will receive part of the 55 million COVID jabs from the US. It'll boost the country's aim, as we are told. It comes after we receive 350. Now, the share that will come to Kenya,
They will decide.
they'll tell us.
Depending on how you behave.
We're going
how
to
Biden
divide it
works
amongst
out.
countries.
Do you have any idea when this might happen?
In future.
It's going to happen.
Don't be so
Okay.
cynical. We need these
So there will be
vaccines.
10
They don't
We
have
do
a
need them.
timeline.
We do. But these promises don't give you
This is not the
vaccines.
first time that Biden has said, we are going to donate vaccines. He
So it's
said,
in
we are going
their
to,
works.
we are going to donate vaccines. How many? 80 million. Now they're 55 million.
The 55 million and
So-
25% will be shared.
Where are the rest?
I don't know where the
America's
other countries,
holding.
right? So what they're calling the CARICOM countries. So there's Colombia, Argentina, Haiti. Then there's the Dominican Republic, Costa Rica, Panama, Afghanistan, Bangladesh, Pakistan.
What have we just been called again?
No, not you. Those are the ones. And then the Philippines, Vietnam, Indonesia, South Africa, Nigeria, Kenya, Ghana, Cabo Verde, Egypt, Jordan, Iraq, Yemen, Tunisia, Oman. Oman, and we're going like that. So there's certain countries that will get 25% of this 55 million from the US.
Okay.
The G7 made similar promises.
This is part of that
Look,
combined promise.
I wouldn't hold my breath. No, I wouldn't. It's not just with COVID. How many promises do these people make? We don't ask them to make the promises. They decide, they meet together and they're having tea, whatever it is people have when they make these decisions. And they make their decision. Then they tell us. It raises hope. Don't wait for it. Do what needs to be done. Should, if, when, perhaps it comes, well, then we'll know what to do with it. But
Keep your
to
expectations
plan
low is
and
what
hope
you're
for this thing, don't.
Especially when the person
Don't.
who's giving you is not telling you, is not giving you timelines.
Don't.
That I am releasing them next week, so expect them on
Don't.
Does government have another plan?
Well, there are
Isn't
others.
this what's
Johnson,
government's plan?
Johnson
No.
and Johnson will come in August.
No, the point you're making, Wanjiru, is a valid one. But
Yeah.
the thing is, this compounds a bad situation. I'd rather deal with the vagaries of our government, because that one at least I understand. All right? what they're doing. This I understand. But someone else joining our government in that chorus that we're tired of, telling us we're going to get things which we never really seem to get. No.
Well,
Because
isn't this the
it's like
entire
adding
point?
somebody to a
Because
WhatsApp
this
group
is
for
government's plan. Isn't this this the calculation? What is government's plan?
Government's plan, like Susan Muchacha said yesterday, they've made some application for 10 million, Johnson & Johnson and such other plans, in addition to now receiving all these donations. But you see, the people who are hoarding these things are the ones who are making it even impossible for you to access the vaccine in the first place.
they're making it difficult for COVAX. They're making it difficult for people who actually set up for UNICEF. They're making it difficult for these people to actually do what they're supposed to do. So forget us. The agencies that were tasked with this cannot access it.
Yeah.
And they're not accessing something that is in production. They have it. They're holding it. So now tell me, what is this thing that what exactly are they telling us? When you're telling us we hope. We've been hearing this thing for the last 3 months. And yet, there is no single day you're told next week. So all these countries that have a stockpile that they don't know what to do with and will expire in a month, give us. We will know what to do with it in a month.
Yes.
Yes. We will know what to do with it.
Let's take that break. 20 minutes after 6. Let's take a look at the weather and then we'll be looking at the headlines shortly.
"24/7 around the world, non-stop. This is Spice FM.
Malaria husababishwa na viini ambazo husambazwa na kuumwa na mbu kutoka kwa mwathiriwa mmoja aliye na viini hivyo hadi mwingine. Unajua kwamba waweza zuia malaria na hivyo basi kuzuia maafa yanayotokana na maradhi ya malaria? Unaweza kuzuia malaria kwa kuhakikisha kila mtu katika jamii analala ndani ya neti za mbu zilizotibiwa kila siku, kila msimu. Hakikisha mazingira karibu na makao yako ni safi kwa kuondoa maji yaliyokusanyika, vyombo vya plastiki, tairi za gari, katoni na vitu vingine vyote ambavyo havitumiki haswa msimu wa mvua. Vitu hivi hutumika kama makao kuzaana kwa mbu. Wanawake wajawazito katika maeneo hatari ya malaria wanaomba kutembelea kituo cha afya kupokea dawa zilizoidhinishwa za kuwazuia dhidi ya malaria pamoja na mtoto aliye tumboni. Pamoja tuendelee kuangamiza malaria. Ujumbe huu umeletwa kwako na Wizara ya Afya na UNICEF.
Classic soul, R&B, smooth jazz, neo soul, and nostalgic ballads.
It's raining slightly in parts of Nairobi at 13, highs of 21 and lows of 14 today. Mostly cloudy conditions in Nyeri at 13, highs of 19. We'll see highs of 23 in Nakuru, it's clear at 13, and 9 degrees in Eldoret, highs of 23 today, and lows of 10. It's clear in Kisumu at 17, highs of 27. We'll see highs of 26 in Kakamega, it's clear at 15. Rain showers in parts of Mombasa already this morning, 29 the high and lows of 22. It's also raining in parts of Malindi at 22, highs of 26. We'll see highs of 25 in Kampala, it's partly cloudy at 20. Clear conditions in Dar es Salaam at 21, highs of 29 today. 16 will be the high in Johannesburg, where it's mostly cloudy at 10, and 25 it's raining in Lagos, and highs of 28 and lows of 24. 29 will be the high in Kinshasa, where it's raining this morning at 22. Looking out into Beijing, following suit, well, it's raining as well. Into afternoon, highs of 30 and lows of 21. Cloudy conditions in Paris at 13 with highs of 17 today. It's clear in London at 10, it'll go to highs of 20. And New York, still Tuesday night, 17 degrees, it's clear. Coming into Wednesday, we'll see highs of 23 and lows of 14.
Spice FM. Spice up your life. Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself. Mornings done right. 94
Proverb.
Right. This one, Eric, you will like. I thought I would think of a happy proverb on this delightful happy Wednesday.
Oh, lovely.
All right. A happy man marries the girl he loves. A happier man loves the girl he married.
C'est vrai. C'est vrai, c'est vrai.
Which
Okay.
country did you say?
Africa.
Generally.
Generally speaking.
A happy man.
City made that one up. This Africa is your house. You sat there and said,
You really must not let your imagination go to waste. Yes, but this one, I didn't make. Yes. There's some even I write and I look at them like the others, which I look and I say, this one I can't. But this one I liked.
A happy man marries the girl he likes.
Loves life.
He loves.
Yes.
A happier man loves the girl he married.
yeah, true. They should use this for counseling young couples.
This is Uncle City. This is
Marriage encounter.
this one.
Marriage encounter.
This is Uncle City. Are you preparing yourself for this weekend? Where have you been invited to speak?
The invitation
I think this is part of your homework. Then you're like, this one, I can use this one tomorrow.
the invitation was actually last week.
Oh, it was last week.
Yes. And it was on fatherhood.
Oh, but
Yes.
Voila.
nice.
And it occurred to me, fatherhood. If you want to really talk about it, you really need to consider the people who make it possible for you to be a father.
These are the children.
Not really the children. Children are a byproduct. It is the women. And they've come in the form of wives usually, a more stable form of that particular individual and relationship. They come in the form of partners.
Jolly partner.
Yes, they even come in the form of what I hear, girlfriends. So, but I prefer the wife bit because that one has a permanency to it, and it also reflects on this product we're referring to as child. This individual that makes you now parent. That one. Yes.
You need to be called for a talk now on this subject because I'm sure,
This one of
you're
marriage.
demonstrating some very, very,
Wisdom.
some good wisdom.
As
If
we
that-
say, wisdom will not kill you.
By the way, I've understood it. I've got it. By the way, Eric, thank you. Every time these people call me wise, what I'm being told is, City, you're old.
Which people are
And
you
I've told
referring
them, I get it.
Which people?
It's true.
These two.
Yes. Let me point at them the way Kenyans do.
Ignorance. So let's take a look at the headlines.
Okay.
Today in history, just the first one. Today, June 23rd, but in 1971, Yatta MP Gideon Munyao Mutiso pleads guilty to the charge of conspiring with others not before the court to topple the government of the Republic of Kenya. In his confession, he implied that the Chief of General Staff, Major General Joseph Musiemi Ndolo, was an interested party in that conspiracy. The Major General resigned from the military over this allegation. The MP was sentenced to 9.5 years in prison. We only talk about, many people only talk about 1992. They forget the other beats of history.
And it didn't happen once. Remember that particular conspiracy and the discussions around it that settled around the eastern part of the country, Cumberland, also cost a Chief Justice of the time their job. Because they also implicated. But it also cost other high-ranking military officers who
jobs.
also happened to come from that neck of the woods, their jobs.
It was common
Yes.
for for governments of the day to be overthrown on the continent. This was us settling down into this new form of government, and so other countries were also having coups, and Kenya would have gone that way, but obviously that didn't happen.
If you look at the genesis of these things, and I was young then, but I still remember the talk around it, it boils down to the same thing that we're dealing with now. Unkept and broken promises. People agree that certain things should be done in a certain way, then certain people are sent to positions of authority, and then they renege. It's like they never said it, it was never agreed upon, and people say, but hey, folk, we agreed, didn't we? Is this not what we said was supposed to happen? So.
So other headlines then.
And here we are today.
Well, I guess you can't ignore it, but Wanjiku wins as MPs reject the Yatani taxes, what we're being told on the front page of The Standard. Also on The Nation, MPs block tax on bread and border. The prices of chapati and ugali are likely to go down after legislators jolted Treasury's revenue-raising plan by making changes to the Finance Bill 2021 to ease the growing burden on Kenyans. Why, thank you very much. The winners, they say 0% VAT, removing that on ugali. Chapati, 0% VAT, removing taxes on any of its inputs. 15% border proposed excise duty that has been scrapped. Infant food, 16%. Proposed VAT that has been struck out. TVET graduates, companies to get tax breaks if they employ 5 TVET graduates, down from 10. 0% exporters, so 0% VAT on exports. And sugarcane farmers, 0% VAT on transport of sugarcane from farm to factory. So it would look as if now MPs have jumped into this to try and, throw Hail Mary for Kenyans.
Do just pause for a second. This budget, before it was read to us, unless I'm mistaken, didn't it go through Parliament at some point?
So 2 stages.
So it should, okay.
The first one is when the budget estimates and the figures are brought to Parliament. Okay? Government says, I intend to spend 3.62 trillion shillings in 12 months. MPs look at that and they're like, okay,
go ahead.
You can now come and tell us how you want to raise the money to spend. Then Mr. Yatani comes to Parliament. He says,
briefcase?
This is how I intend to raise. This is the finance bill. Now, the finance bill is what is being discussed. So these are the proposals where Yatani wants to look for money. Remember, they have already said it's okay, you can spend 3.62 trillion shillings. They are only here attempting to tell us that they are disagreeing on how to raise the 3.62 trillion shillings. In my opinion, nonsense. Number one, it is just the Finance Committee that has made some sitting and proposals to the House. The House has not voted.
They've just made suggestions.
Yes. So, in my opinion, these headlines are misleading because it's not yet a win.
It's not done.
MPs will have to sit and vote. And you know what happens?
And also 2 other things, because you're spot on. The Standard then goes on to say, but in what appears like giving with one hand and taking with the other, the committee led by Gladys Wanga, women representative, proposed to increase excise duty on telephone and internet services. Government is increasingly relying on digitization to help the economy, blah, blah, blah. But the investment in airtime has now become the single, one of the largest items taking up the biggest chunk of individuals' incomes, even more than rent, health, or education. So it's amazing that households are spending so much on airtime and communication, because you must. Kenya, the government already raised taxes on internet in various ways. They've then proposed to
Bring in the digital services
tax
tax.
digital services, and that was one of the proposals in the tax bill. And so those ones have gone through. So one way or the other, they're getting that money. And so apparently the cost of airtime is now being put in the basket that makes up the household income because of its significance. Kenyans are putting more of their money into airtime than even rent, health, or education. So, populism, like you say.
But it is. Bottom line, they have already agreed that the government can spend 3.6 trillion shillings. Now, it is, are you going to tax Ndu or are you going to tax Wanjiro? No, don't tax Ndu, tax Wanjiro.
And or borrow. And plus, Parliament put a cap on borrowing by way of the ceiling and by way of the deficit.
Yep.
So there's only so much government can borrow. So you're right.
Bypassing the estimates in the budget policy statement and allowing the government to do this and allowing the government to have such a heavy deficit, they have indirectly approved raising of that ceiling. Because you've already told the government,
right.
yes, spend.
Yeah.
And the government has told you, I can only raise 1.8 trillion. You've basically told them, go and borrow. It's all games we are being played with. And just like we've seen before, when the Finance Committee comes with some proposals. Remember the other time it was a whole back and forth about raising fuel tax, the VAT on petroleum products. Went to Parliament, went to the President, it came back, they ended up raising. Even this one, I want to bet that the proposals that have been proposed here by Gladys Wanga's committee, Parliament will not vote the way that bill has been brought. They're going to do some serious horse
It's a proposal,
trading.
and you will be told later, well, look, we
Some
tried,
serious
and
horse
we had your
trading.
best interest at heart.
Yeah.
We tried, it didn't go through, but just always realize we had your best interest at heart.
The best thing we're going to do. In fact, then they'll be coming and sitting and telling us, we actually, if you remember, our committee proposed this.
We made proposals.
But now,
they were rejected.
Then Parliament was, undue pressure by the executive, and then...
Margie.
So you're so right.
You know how we preface these statements, at least I do sometimes, I used to, by saying, I'm not really an economist, I don't really understand. Actually, the complete opposite is true. I am an expert, and I do understand, because these decisions have a very direct impact in my life. And there is no better way of understanding how something pans out than when it affects you. How is it that these parliamentarians cannot possibly understand that when you talk about suggestions, can you not think of something that will bolster the earning capacity of Kenyans so that there's something to tax? What is it that is being done to make sure that people can actually do more of what they used to do with the challenges we have? Why is not more money being put there? It's like the thinking that they have towards these capital developments that we have. That thinking isn't wrong at all, in that you do something so that you can benefit from it later. But we know why we challenge these things. Something as basic as making sure that people actually have money. Here we are, even when it comes to banking, we are competing with our government. The government is borrowing from the same source as us. And the government is preferred by the lender. So how is it that these people are actually planning to help Kenyans get out of this? It's a downward spiraling situation that we have. How? Eric, you're spot on. These guys, I think we've given them enough airtime. Can we discuss
25
something?
minutes to 7. Let's take that break, take a look at traffic, and then we look at other headlines. Good morning.
24/7 around the world, non-stop. This is Spice FM.
The COVID-19 pandemic has reminded us that knowing how to spot fake news can be the difference between life and death. The spread of fake news has national implications too. Is your governor really delivering on his campaign promises? Or does the Ethics and Anti-Corruption Commission have a watertight case against him? It all boils down to the news you consume. That's why SpiceFM and its partners have created the Fighting Fakes Media Literacy campaign to help Kenyans become more discerning news consumers. We'll show you how to take care before you share. Tune in to the Situation Room from 6 a.m. every weekday morning for refreshing and profitable conversations about the facts, and only the facts.
As the Kenyans are roared into the home straight here. 4 Kenyan queens have lit up this balmy Bahamian night.
It's where the rivalry is unmatched, where the soul meets the track, where the great are distinguished from the good. An arena where the records are broken.
A new world record. It's not just been beaten, it's been obliterated.
A stage where the legends are born. For Team Kenya, the Olympics is more than just a sport. It is our tradition. It's an event that has put Kenya on the roadmap. The Standard Group lets you watch every minute and every action live in the 2020 Tokyo Olympics. Because we live for Team Kenya. We live for the game. At Standard Group.
Okay, so the question, what's
lives
going on today? Lots of cops on the Southern Bypass, Langata Road, Bagathiwe, all the way to State House and Kileleshwa. What's happening? Well, the president is coming back into the country. And so that's why we're seeing a lot of the traffic that we're seeing this morning, and it's already piling up on Mombasa Road in and outbound, guys. I know folks have already been on the road for an hour and waiting and not moving at all, begging, please help us out with what's going on Mombasa Road. Well, until and unless he comes in and then moves, nothing is going to. So we have traffic as far back as Green Green Park Estate on Mombasa Road today. It does not look pretty at all. Langata Road is also at a standstill, just backed up past the barracks, moving very slowly as you get towards the T-Mall roundabout. Bagavi Way towards Valley Road, also a lot of traffic this morning. And where there is a sore finger there, it's spreading to the rest of the city. Jogo Road also, we have serious traffic there going into industrial area. Coming out then at the Likoni interchange and trying to connect with the southern bypass, it's everywhere you look this morning. And Kiambu Road and the Thika Superhighway are not left out either. Patience, my people, patience is what we're going to need this morning. Let's take a look in a short while and see how it opens up. SpiceFM KE on Twitter. Text on 40127.
Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself. Mornings done right. 94.4 Spice FM, Nairobi.
7. Wanjiru, what are you looking at?
I'm looking at this degrees issue. Yeah, degree requirement. And this writer argues that argues for the proposal that these leaders need degrees, and you know, his argument is, how can someone with inferior knowledge, understanding, conceptual skills and competencies consider policies, laws, plans, budgets authored by people with superior skills in the same attributes, because public service schemes of service require at least a master's degree for senior technical administrative staff. So to argue that political leadership, that good education is not necessary for political leadership, is the height of naivety and ignorance on the workings of the political economy. Okay. Therefore, yes, there's about a million or less than a million degree holders in Kenya. I was surprised by that statistic because I thought we've been doing much better on that front. So having a degree is a very elite enterprise. And I'm not sure the law says degree or its equivalent.
It says degree.
It says degree.
Yeah.
What are you saying? What idiocy is that? I mean, all we have is very educated crooks if we think it only takes a degree to make a leader. So
we had a conversation about this last week, and sort of we got to some level of understanding that I don't know whether we agreed.
No, but understanding doesn't necessarily indicate that we came to a general consensus.
Yes, that you know, knowledge is not necessarily formal. Education is not necessarily formal. That helps you to understand people's needs and to speak for people. So what should people be looking for? Is maybe that's where the focus should be. Because I personally, even after reading all these things, I've gotten to that point where I've taken a firm position on this particular matter. It is unconstitutional and undemocratic to place such a requirement. It's undemocratic because you're denying people the ability to elect a leader of their choice. It's unconstitutional because you are basically alienating some people.
And it doesn't make sense in any way or form, especially for a country that's, you know, if you look at the direction in which education is going, the future of work, how do, you know, people are talking about working more, learning never ends. You can do a lot of self-learning, self-teaching. Look at leaders and people who have done great things in even in present day, who don't have university degrees, who don't have formal education, because formal education is for some.
Yeah.
There's formal education, there's technical education, you can learn on the job. I'm like, yeah. It's unfortunate we're even discussing this, but maybe, hopefully, something good comes out of this debate.
You know why I'm saying we must discuss it? The reason why university education is so sought after is because historically it represented opportunities that were not available if you didn't have it. But the reality right now is that you can have it and those opportunities will still not be there.
Yeah.
Yesterday we were talking about how young people who qualify to go to university chose not to go to university, but they are moving towards TVETs. They're actually applying for certificate courses, diploma courses, but courses that would enable you to actually be able to do something and earn a living. So sometimes there's a threshold we need to reach for people to understand that, yes, formal education has its place. Yes, it's important, but it is not the only thing you need if you want to get on in life.
Exactly.
Yet there are certain areas of our economy where that formal education is a must. You will not even be considered for a single second if you don't have it.
Fair enough.
But it isn't the only one. There are many others that don't require it. Now, when it comes to the representation of people, in all honesty, you cannot say just a university degree. You actually go to the heart of the matter. You have to look for equivalence and say a university degree or.
Equivalent.
Well,
Yes.
By way
I'm
of
saying,
experience.
let the people decide. I come from that point. The Parliamentary Service Commission can go ahead and recruit technical people with those requirements, university degree or depending on the technical ability that they're looking for. But in terms of a leader, representative of the people, let the people decide. If they want to elect a tortoise, let them elect a tortoise. As long as the tortoise can prove that it's a human being, it's an adult.
And it can read because you still
Yes, can read and write.
they do a basic proficiency test. So as long
And
as
it
you
passes
pass
chapter
basic,
6.
you know what they're saying is Kenyans can't elect good leaders. Now the truth is we elect really bad leaders, many of whom have degrees, advanced degrees and all of that. So what we need to look at is leadership and our relationship with leadership and how we elect leaders and how leaders serve.
Yep.
Well, speaking about those who maybe didn't get a choice about education, thousands of girls got married and did not resume learning, according to a study that has been recently released. At least 160,000 girls got married during the period schools were closed following the outbreak of COVID and did not report back when learning resumed in January this year. Those affected were aged between 15 and 19, according to the Presidential Policy and Strategy Unit study titled The Impact of COVID on Adolescents. The survey was conducted between June 2020 and February 2021. Under the current education arrangement, most girls in this age bracket are in upper primary and in secondary schools. The study also shows another 100,000 girls were plunged into motherhood, and after they were impregnated during the 9 months schools were closed, most of the girls have just given birth. Boys did not fare well either, as 125,000 of them did not report back to school after reopening early this year. Most of them cited lack of school fees. Overall, 250,000 girls did not report back after schools reopened. According to Ruth Kagia, the Deputy Chief of Staff at the Executive Office of the President, said finer details of the report would be released this week. But when schools were shut last year, the rate of teenage pregnancies went up. Other teenagers fell into drugs and substance abuse. They also had access to some information through phones and other gadgets that were not regulated. It's a high number.
It's a very high number.
high
When
number
you're talking
for all
about
of them.
over 300,000 learners do not go back to school.
Right. And it's a high number for the same reason. You see what I'm saying? That 160,000 did not go back to school for the same reason. If we're just looking at the 300,000 and we break it down
Marriage.
to the 160,000 girls, they were pregnant. And that's why they didn't go back. All of them, same reason why they didn't go back to school. It's a high number.
Tragically so.
It would be nice also to hear from Madam Ruth Kagia. So once the government goes ahead and finds out this 160,000 got married, because it's the 100,000 extra who got pregnant. So this 160,000 who got married, and they're below the ages of, between the ages of 15 and 19. Those below 18, did you bring them back to school? Did you make efforts to bring them back to school?
We know there was a directive from the ministry that and also working with the Ngaos, right, to bring girls
Back
to
to
actually
school.
go into homes and find out who was still at home and bring them back to school. It would be interesting to see if this report correlates with that directive.
And I spoke to a gentleman who is a head teacher in a primary school in Homer Bay County, one of those islands. And he told me that one of the difficult things you have, you see, the young men who go into fishing and start earning money, it'll be a tall order to
get them back.
to school.
Yeah.
He said, and yes, the theory is that it is good to bring the girls back to school. But you see, there's something people forget. You're bringing back somebody's wife.
Yep.
It's not the girl who you taught. This is now someone's wife. So even her own attitude towards learning and her attitude towards
different.
everything else is completely different. So it's not a small challenge.
Yeah, there's a big socio-economic dimension that you must deal with.
And the reality is that we live in a country where people do not think it is criminal to marry underage girls. I'm making a blanket statement because I intend to make it a blanket statement. Most people have no problem whatsoever.
But you're also making a presumption that they are not marrying underage, very young guys. It's not. It doesn't necessarily mean
It
they're
could
being
also be
married by
teenagers
older.
marrying
Exactly.
teenagers.
That happens, but the numbers are not as big. The demand is for older men marrying younger girls.
But also
because
older men,
there's a
CT.
commercial element to it that makes it more attractive.
Older men, CT, like we've seen even in many court cases of people who are being taken to court, is not older at 40-year-olds, 30-year-olds. It's actually people in their 20s.
It is true.
Like the case that Justice Chitembo was dealing with in Kwale. A 24-year-old had married a 17-year-old.
Yes.
So they are still within that youthful age.
It's only the law that...
It's a 19-year-old threshold that has just been broken.
You know why I'm making a blanket statement? It's for this reason. Huh? Many girls who get pregnant don't necessarily end up getting married. Okay?
That's right.
And so, but parents will want them to be stable. And who do you think is going to marry them? Not this younger person.
It's somebody with a job, with means.
There'll be a second, third, fourth wife or something of that sort. Now, I'm not even going to go into statistics. I am saying this. This is something that could actually be prevented. Because we know what was happening, we could see it. We had seen a microcosm of it before COVID. COVID simply meant that it was increased because what? People were staying at home and weren't going to school. School provided that safety net.
Yep.
But let me look at a different story that doesn't quite... Are you going on a break, Eric?
Let's take this break and then
Let's
you look
take
at
the
that
break.
different story. It's
Yes.
10 minutes to 7. This is Kenya's biggest conversation, The Situation Room. We're glad you're tuned in this morning.
"24/7 around the world, non-stop. This is SpiceFM.
Samsung Galaxy just got more awesome. Introducing the new A32, A52 and A72. These awesome devices boast an awesome screen for your larger-than-life views and for you to maximize your viewing pleasure on your favorite content. An awesome camera for awesome, clearer, brighter, sharper pics and an awesome battery that lasts all day long. Get to your nearest Samsung store or authorized retailer today. The new Galaxy A series. Awesome is for everyone. T's and C's apply.
We've been all through it, We go to school, study hard, get the much-deserved grades and celebrate our graduation. Then reality hits us. We get to the job market and we simply don't know where to start off. Thankfully, by visiting jobs.standardmedia.co.ke, your next career breakthrough could be a click away. Get the best in career advice, employment opportunities, internships, part-time jobs, CV writing and interview coaching. Give your career the much-needed lift on jobs.standardmedia.co.ke.
Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself.
Mornings done
All right.
right.
What's that story is that, City?
This is in the Business Daily. It's a headline. How civil servant bought 279 million worth. Well, they didn't buy 290. The worth of the houses was 279 million houses in days. Now, this is the background to the story. The 1,000 shilling note was being changed. Okay? So around the time when we were moving into this new look 1,000 shilling note, around that same time, a certain individual who actually works for the government, she is a deputy director at the Kenya Rural Roads Authority, KERA. Okay? Now, it is being reported that there were some 35 apartments in Kileleshwa area. But it's also being reported that she acquired 12 of these, one and others in Rwaka.
Wow.
But the interesting bit is that it was all in cash.
Wow. Wow. Wow.
This amount I mentioned, 279
Old
million,
notes.
cash before the old notes and the usage of them expired.
Wow.
Sasa
Transitions.
shida iko wapi?
Ati?
What's the problem?
What's the problem?
I actually don't have a problem. I'm really reading what I am really reading what has happened here.
Well, because the money was going.
No,
Why
I don't.
would you say there is no problem?
I actually don't have a problem. I don't have a problem. I'm merely saying this is an amazing thing. But there are those who have a problem. The Asset Recovery Authority have a problem because they have not only frozen the account, but they've also asked for those assets to be seized. They have a problem.
Yeah, because now the problem is matching your known sources of income with your expenditure.
Yes.
Now, you are paid this much. What else do? You run a kiosk? Okay, how much does it earn you? This is what you tell KRA as your income. And then you're spending this kind of money.
279 million.
So somebody, instead of shredding the
In
old
days.
notes that were going out of circulation, obviously
days.
made them available.
Yes.
So no one was supposed to notice this. Kenya.
In fact, there are those who actually argue that during that leniency period that were given, they became the banknote of choice for criminals. Because now, it's something you could trade with.
Yes, no.
Yeah, okay, I can take your old notes that somebody knew what to do with them, but of course at a discount.
It's a discount.
Yes. So for every 10,000, I give you
9.
6,000.
Yes.
Not 9. Oh, no. If you don't take that, in a matter
you
of
don't take
days,
it, it'll be nothing to you.
It will be,
Yes.
it'll be.
You either take 6 or you lose out.
Nothing.
So, but what this story told me, if somebody has 300 million shillings cash, I'm taking that's not the only money they have, and this is not the only individual who had this money.
Yep.
Now, if you work for a government agency like the Kenya Rural Roads Authority, I now begin to understand why our roads cost so much. Because we convert some of these roads into houses.
Perks of the job.
What would have been a road became a house.
Only in Kenya.
Hey, stuff of the
walkway.
of the magician.
That's where the walkway went.
Yes. Let me tell you about something that's happening in the Lake region. The Lake region economic bloc governors are like, all right, so we understand that there's a rise in the number of COVID-19 cases in our region. We understand the measures that the government has taken. We also understand that we are having problems, with building our own capacity to take in all these people who are seeking hospitalization, to get oxygen for them. But forget about all those things. We want the government to allow us to import vaccines directly. That's what the governors are saying. They are asking the government, through a joint statement signed by Wycliffe Oparanya, Kakamega Governor, Anyang' Nyong'o of Kisumu, and James Ongwae of Kisii, that the counties continue to bear the brunt of the pandemic, and the only way to salvage the situation is through intensified vaccination. According to Nyong'o, the vaccine importation by the national government is way below the requirement at a time when infections are projected to rise. He says the counties have the capacity to work with development partners in acquiring vaccines. We are appealing to the national government to listen to our cry so that we can intervene as counties and bring in the approved vaccine. So they're saying, you guys up there, whatever you're doing is not going to work. Just allow us to go and get the vaccine for ourselves. This is the focus that they're giving to what is developing in their counties.
And I think they have an extremely valid point.
Which one is that?
Which is, if you can't buy it, why don't you allow us to buy it? It's not really complicated. Why don't you let us bring it in? And I'm asking the question, actually, why don't you?
I think, and that's why I was asking that question, I think these governors, they need to be focusing on what they need to be focusing on. This thing of telling the people that, you know what, we are now fighting with the national government to be allowed to import the vaccines. They know they will not be able to get vaccines in good time for their population. They should be focusing on, do we have oxygen? Because in a separate story, as they were talking, they were actually talking about, our governors need to work on how to ramp up their capacity to produce and get access to oxygen. That's what they should be focusing on. Vaccine story, even if they're given that permission, authority tomorrow, vaccines, they're not going to get these vaccines in weeks. In fact, if they're lucky, months.
health is an evolved function, is it not?
It's our.
It is, but the importation of vaccines has always been one of those issues that is contested. Why? Because there is economies of scale, there's matters of storage, quality. So, like on this one, I think I'm with Eric saying, where are your strengths and where should you be focusing? They should be lighting a fire under the government for not doing their job. But then I guess on the other hand, they're saying if government is not handling the procurement properly, they're sitting ducks. It's also the same. We saw the same in India.
Last time the government
where
managed,
the state governments then are frustrated because the national government isn't doing their bit.
Yes.
Your point is a valid one, Wanjiro, but the last time the government handled mass procurements for the counties in the MES project, it ended up in the same thing with another S added to it. It was a mess. So all I'm saying is, yes, it's a red herring. We are looking at somewhere we shouldn't. But the truth of the matter is, the national government is not really painting a very rosy picture about its capacity to provide the vaccines as are needed. So if the counties feel that this is something they need to talk about, they should. But the truth is, if you look at the history of the preparedness for any COVID eventuality, the counties unfortunately have been wholly wanting. They have not lived up to the expectation. That is just the truth.
National government's fared worse, in my view.
Keep it right here. The conversations continue. In the next hour, we look at this new legal push for the release of SGR contracts. Okay, that's the conversation we'll be having. Good morning. Keep it right here. It's now 7 a.m.
Spice up your life. The latest news from around the world. 94.4 Spice FM.
This is Newswire on the Mississippi. Governors from the local region have asked to be accountable for COVID-19 vaccines to combat the wave of the disease in the area. Led by Governors Anyang' Nyong'o and Wycliffe Oparanya, the governors said vaccination is key in controlling further spread of the virus in the region, which has so far recorded 179,075 cases.
If we were allowed as counties to import vaccines, even working with our development partners, we are prepared to do so. We are appealing to the national government or Ministry of Health to listen to our cry.
Undertake circuit breaker and restrict human movement and interaction in funeral, transportation, churches, bars, and hotels.
The National Assembly Committee on Finance and Planning has proposed various changes to the budget estimates announced 2 weeks ago by Finance Minister Ukur Yatani. Led by Homa Bay female Representative Gladys Wanga, the committee focused on the proposed tax imports of motorcycles that would contribute to the increase in prices and negatively affect the border industry. Othaya MP Mugambi Kishuki is among those who contributed to the debate.
Honorable Speaker, the issue of reviewing tax on border, again, I support the committee that we need to oppose this tax because border, as we speak, Honorable Speaker, is the single major employer of our youth in this country. And we know they are doing a great job. They are contributing a lot to the economy of this country. And the only thing we should do is even to support them more, but not to tax them more.
A Nairobi court has allowed the hearing of a case against former sports CES Rashida Chesa to be heard in camera. This is after the prosecution asked the court to allow 2 witnesses from Defense Ministry to testify in private in the case involving a fake military arms tender. Chesa and 4 others have been charged with criminal offences. Nairobi homeowners have been given 2 months to repaint their buildings or face charges. The notice comes in the wake of 1-year deadline issued by the Nairobi Metropolitan Services, which expires in September this year. On July 29, 2020, the NMS ordered all buildings in the city to be repainted in an effort to make the city beautiful. The Tanzanian government has reversed a Magufuli-era directive that prevented girls from continuing with education if they become pregnant. Now, all girls and boys who had suspended their education for various reasons are free to return. This is Newswire. I'm Dennis Aseto.
Spice FM, Nakuru.
Okay, yes, so we know it's that day, guys. Smack dab in the middle of the week, and it's not happening. Where is it happening? In Gong Road, and it's looking pretty good today, getting into the city as you approach the city mortuary roundabout. Everywhere else seems to be suffering from this issue. We're looking at Langata Road, we're looking at Mombasa Road, Outer Ring, outbound, interestingly enough, and then also Thika Road. Coming in from Kiambu Road, you're going to get to the Pangani underpass, and then out towards Ngara, it is not moving. Very, very slow this morning. Wangari Maathai is your option. You shouldn't be having too much of an issue with that. But everywhere else, as waiting for the president to arrive and then make his way to other parts of the city, it looks like traffic is going to be hot and heavy for some time. And so let's just, today, it just means patience. It's another day where your patience will need to be in full reserve. All right. So let's keep looking at it, guys. Are you stuck in a particular area? Do you find a route that you can use if you're not stuck in the middle of it? Let us know. SpiceFM on Twitter. Text on 40127.
This is the Situation Room, the home of hard-hitting political commentary and penetrating insights about the state of the nation. This is a talk radio experience like no other. The Situation Room, a place for hard truths, debates, and elevated conversations. The Situation Room, witty, political, engaging, deep, controversial. In the room, we have C.T. Muga, researcher, academic, seasoned political observer, a fountain of wisdom in these politically uncertain times. Ndu Oko, Nigerian by birth, Kenyan by choice, communications expert, Pan-Africanist, a truth seeker and believer in people power, and Eric Latif, agent provocateur, the man in the chair, seasoned journalist, news hound, a man who believes in punching up, not down. This is the Situation Room.
It's 5
the
past
only
7.
way to
this
start
is
your
biggest conversation, getting into the second hour. CT, today's proverb.
A happy man marries the girl he loves. A happier man loves the girl he married.
Okay.
And the time to be happy is now.
Yeah.
And which girl is happy?
It's the one who the happy,
The married girl is happy.
To make the man happy.
the one whom the happy person has married.
A married girl is happy.
Yes.
Yes.
Because in both cases,
the married girl of the happy husband is the happy girl.
in both cases, the men are happy, the girls are happy.
In other words, happiness is predicated on the happiness of the man.
Raha jipe mwenyewe. Raha jipe mwenyewe. Yes.
Mwenyewe?
Mwenyewe.
Yes.
Yeah.
The word sambaza comes to mind. You sambaza happiness, you get happiness.
I'm not sure I have the heart for this discussion. Do we have time?
You see, even in the men,
Wanjiru, just be happy.
even in
Don't
the
worry.
case,
Because it'll give you a headache if you try to.
if you listen to the proverb, by the way, the proverb is basically telling the man, make yourself happy. Okay? When you love the girl when you marry the girl that you love, you're happy. When you fall in love after marrying the girl that you married,
You're also happy.
are happy. You're making it,
Yeah,
happiness is your issue.
That's a good way. I think I can go with that.
Raha jipe mwenyewe. And we're going to talk about Okoa Mombasa. So we're speaking Swahili. Sasa tumeanza kuzungumza Kiswahili sasa unajua. Tell us about Okoa Mombasa and what the whole movement is all about, especially when it comes to SGR. Wanjiru.
Right. In fact, I'll start by saying every regime of our country has a definitive infrastructure project, that marks it. Moi had Goldenberg, its big corruption scandal. Kibaki had Anglo-leasing, and Uhuru Kenyatta has the SGR. Controversial, large, procured under very dubious circumstances. And in the case of the SGR, there is an organized group that is lobbying around the SGR, Okoa Mombasa, and they have been lobbying on several grounds, key of which is the socio-economic impacts of the SGR and its attendant projects on the local community, and we'll hear more from them. But on Monday, Okwa Mombasa, in conjunction with the Institute for Social Accountability, ourselves, we are very honored to be part of this petition. We filed a petition at the High Court seeking to obtain all contracts, agreements, and studies related to the construction and operation of the SGR. The 450 billion SGR is the most expensive infrastructure project in Kenya's history and was financed mainly via loans through the Export-Import Bank of China. President Uhuru Kenyatta promised to release the contracts in 2018, but has yet to follow through.
So what you're seeking and what the campaigners have been seeking is information relating to this infrastructural development, the contracts, the agreements. So what did you promise? How are we going to be paying back? What's the collateral? What happens if we default? All those. That's the information that you're seeking. Plus now the socio-economical impact that have been done. Are you telling me that none of this information has ever been released, even starting from the ESIA before the project commenced?
Yeah, that's a good point. And I think Khalifa will be in a better position to speak to that. But that's exactly the point. Because this is a bilateral agreement, the government has proceeded on the basis that these agreements are confidential. They are party to the negotiations between countries and therefore have not been released in the public domain. So approvals were made by cabinet. Questions were raised in Parliament, but despite any questions Parliament may have raised, despite any challenge issues that the court may have raised, yes, the contracts aren't available. But it's not just the SGR. Even as we go on, we've floated a new bond, issued a new bond, the Eurobond. Similarly, those contracts aren't available. So there's a lot of information now being made available, more than before, to give Treasury a little bit of credit. And I say a little bit because it's producing reports on the loans and obligations facing this country. But there's crucial information that's not there. Information around collateral, information around what are the terms. What happens if? Are you able to renegotiate? Who are the underwriters? What is promised? And some of the experts say, keep asking the question, if these terms are not controversial, or if there isn't something wrong, why don't they just release them? So in the case of the Eurobonds, it's what they call the indentures, and the underwriters, let these be known, let these terms be released. And in the case of the SGR, let us know what's in this contract.
What's the constitutional threshold? What is it that is actually required by government in such issues when it comes to disclosure?
Oh, very good. The Constitution is very clear and it's very broad. It's a statement that all public information must be made available unless it's established that that information is going to be prejudicial to national security. Right? And that case has not been made. Then the other law that comes into effect is the public procurement law, which requires all these documents to be made available. Further to that, apart from the access, and then there's the access to information law, which also requires now the this environmental impact assessment, all the supporting documentation. So not only do we have a constitutional standard, we have an access to information law, and we have a public procurement law that requires these documents to be made available. And the reason for this is, how can you oversight what you don't know? The devil is in the details. So what is now known is the total figure, the dates of the repayments and when they are due. But there are other details in there that we need to know. And the concern is what, there's a very good documentary produced by Africa Uncensored. They partnered with Okoa Mombasa and last year produced excellent video. And they talked about overlord terms. China is operating in Africa using overlord terms. So they come in as an overlord, where you get into a contract. The arbitration can only be done in China.
Under Chinese law.
Under Chinese law. The terms are beneficial to the Chinese. So it's a very extractive contract. And then those contracts are confidential. China doesn't do this everywhere in the world, but it's doing this in Africa. So you actually go back to what does slavery look like in modern day times? Yes. What is it?
Looks like.
Yeah, because slavery is about power.
Yep.
It's about a misalignment of power and an abuse of power. It's when our sovereignty means nil surrounding a particular contract.
But do they insist that we must have this business with them on those contracts? Or is it that our leaders accept these terms?
Is it our weak negotiation?
Even during slavery, there were the enablers. They had to be the conduits. And the people were sitting pawns. So it's a new form of colonization.
Yes.
Because it impedes our, today we are talking about taxing, okay, we're not going to tax ugali, we're going to increase taxation to airtime and Kenya's general living. And probably we'll come back to bread. But the reason for these domestic taxes, and we've said here, we are not able to push back against government because government's already signed the contract.
But do we have alternatives? Let me just say why I'm asking. Because here we are pointing a finger at China. They're doing what is in their best interest. And I'm thinking, the West that we speak of, since when did they do things that were in our interest?
Such contracts are not unique to these ones by China, right?
Exactly.
They have happened even in other countries.
Yes.
Other countries have come in as development partners as well.
So they're happening as we speak. The difference maybe with the multilaterals is there's a Paris Agreement. After the 1990s, structural adjustment programs where there was an obvious imbalance of power, obvious violation of lending facilities, Paris agreements were drawn up to put international lenders in check. China has been outside of that framework. Commercial lenders are outside of that framework, and they are therefore abusing international lending practices.
But the alternative that they provide is against a backdrop of what was available before and terms which people may have considered unacceptable. So they have options which, as you're saying, appear to be draconian and isn't in their interest, but it's against that backdrop because when the options were available, why would I move to something that isn't beneficial to me? Why?
Exactly.
And the reason is because if we look at the other lenders, whether it's IMF, the tag that IMF, World Bank have also had is that they lean towards some of the Western countries and that their thinking supports the thinking and the power structure of the Western countries. So, you see, it's a debate that's ongoing and there is evidence to lend to that particular way of thinking.
I would draw a line or a separation between multilateral lending that is governed by the Paris kind of accord and has standards which you can litigate on, and you'll find those projects, those contracts are available locally. The ones that are giving us problems are the commercial. It's the Eurobonds, it's the syndicated loans, and it's the bilaterals. So those ones are actually our major debt problem is there. And that is where government goes in. For instance, with the first Eurobond, they went in for a certain amount of money, were able to get 4 times that. So they took the larger amount. You heard the attorney saying this time, we were very disciplined. We were oversubscribed, but we only took the amount that we had planned because we are watching. It is only because we are watching.
Or is it we're being watched?
We are watching.
Of what benefit would government have?
Right?
Jointly. Let's bring in our
guest. So we need
guest.
the contract.
Let's bring in our guest. Khalif Khalifa is the director of the Muslim for Human Rights, Muhuri, and is also part of the Okoa Mombasa coalition. And he joins us now on the line. Good morning, Khalif.
Good morning. Morning. How are you?
Very well. Thank you very much for joining us. Welcome to the Situation Room.
Thank you.
You've had the introduction, and Wanjiru has given us a brief of this particular petition that you've taken to court and what exactly you're seeking. I just want to ask from that very beginning, like Wanjiru has said, in 2018, President Uhuru Kenyatta says, it's details about this. Details will be available. We have nothing to hide. Since then, What efforts have you made as Muhuri, as Okoa Mombasa, to get access to this information about the contracts, about the agreements that have been made, and about all the details surrounding SGR?
Thank you very much. And I think Wanjiru has explained it very, very explicitly. Our problem emanates from its inception. The agreement and the reason why they are building this railway and the SGR and Exim Bank, everything was shrouded in mystery. Unfortunately, we did try to engage the government. In fact, we wrote to PS, Minister of Transport, Managing Director of KPA. We wrote to Director General of Kenya National Bureau of Statistics. We wrote to Registrar General, State Law Office. We wrote to Solicitor General. We also wrote to PS National Treasury, trying to seek what is this behind this agreement. At the end, we also write to Attorney General, and nothing was forthcoming. So everything was shrouded in mystery. But what alerted us more when Honorable Raila Odinga publicly, he said when they started negotiating with the Chinese between him and Kibaki, they said this regime has inflated the price for about 100 billion shillings. So we thought there's something amiss. And we are not politicians. We are not seeking uchochezi. We just seek the truth. This notion that we elect president, we elect parliamentarians, governors, MCAs, so they have right to speak about us without us asking, that has gone. Since the promulgation of the new constitution, it has placed us in front of everybody, that the government cannot do anything unless they have public participation, in which they bypass. So this notion that they can do everything on our behalf, that has gone. But unfortunately, the government is not coming.
Right.
You all remember what happened. You all remember what happened in Eurobond. It's a lot of money. When the public demanded to tell us where did the money go, it was not forthcoming. We were saying, they put it in treasury. So you don't borrow the money for the sake of borrowing. You borrow the money for a specific purpose. That specific purpose was never
made public.
Coming forth.
If I can ask you, if just looking at it, as you look at all of these details, of what benefit would it be to government to keep this information under wraps?
Because they have something to hide. That's it. There is nothing. If they don't have anything to hide, they should have made public. Now, let me tell you this. Part of the agreement, if there's going to be a dispute between Kenya government and the Chinese, the arbitration will be done in China, not in Kenya, not in any other country. The arbitration will be done in China. So it is a disadvantage to us. You see, this SGR, as they call it Madaraka Day, because Madaraka Express, because it was meant for political purpose. You see, people want to show that we have done maendeleo makubwa kabisa before the election, few months before the election. Hurry up, and let it be done. And everything went hayway. You see, there is a lot of... we went to court. We want to establish the truth, because the government cannot come to us and tell us it's secret. They use public money. Okay, when it involves, let's say, military, what kind of weapons we bought on, so they can say, okay, this has got something to do with national security. But this is an ordinary infrastructure. The biggest infrastructure in the history of this country. And the biggest thing people must understand, since Kenya got independence in 1963 to date, almost 90% of Kenyans don't believe the government.
Helef, I want to ask you.
99% people think the government is corrupt. Now, look, please.
I want to ask you, so with what you're seeking now, is there any bit of information that you have regarding SGR? And how did you acquire this information?
Correct. There is nothing more we're asking.
Do you have any information so far? Have you come across any information at all with regards to SGR and the contracts?
No, nothing. Nothing. Despite.
How do you know these details that you're giving us about arbitration can only happen in China? Why did you get that information?
You see, there was pieces of information here and there through the media. Okay? But the real information, the real contract, the government said it's secret. They wrote to us. They said, no, we cannot divulge this information, period. So the pieces here and there, we just get it from the media.
Government does release information, but they are selective on what they share. So you'll get the amounts. And increasingly what Treasury now has put into the budget, into the debt strategy and into the annual debt report is they're giving the interest rates, they're giving the repayment period. They weren't giving those some 2-3 years back. But with increased pressure, they are giving more information. But still, we don't know the clauses. We don't know the penalties. We don't know if there is some hidden promises because the details are in the contracts. Now, I'll give you an example just to support what Khalid is saying. With the Eurobond, because the question, of course, came up, if you go on to the other country financial platforms, or even if you go onto the international Bloomberg platform, you will get information about the prospectuses, about the contracts, and the terms of those contracts on their terminals. So that you wonder if countries, for instance, Argentina had challenges, Lebanon is also having some challenges with the Eurobond, but those contracts are available. Because they then run into trouble with the international creditors when they're not able to pay. The problem is, when you're not able to pay, what are the strict restrictions on the country? That should be in the contract. Because we then know, and Parliament also can oversight. There's another aspect, there are two other aspects, I think, that come out. If we know those restrictions, and those restrictions are unconstitutional under the law of Kenya, we will do what Mozambique did. We will go to court and say, when these guys negotiated, they violated the law. So that contract actually can be nullified, right? And then, of course, the last thing is, if we have the contract, we can stop the gravy train that inflated SGR 4 times. From the original cost that it was, because that's the thing. SGR was inflated 4 times. Our SGR is 472 kilometers. Ethiopia's is 756 kilometers, kilometers. But then in cost, they are comparative. So theirs is twice as long. Ours, and theirs is 3.4B. Ours is 3.2B. So
arguments have been made. Ethiopia did not buy land. Ethiopia does not have the bridges and all those things. But I want to ask a different question. I get the issue of accessing the contracts. Okay, and when I started by asking, what information do you have presently, so that then we know this is the information that's available that the government has released so far, and this is the information that the government has not released so far specifically.
The contract. And
then you can also then tell us of the other bilateral agreements and projects that have been carried out in this country, give us comparatively. Kenya, for example, signed a bilateral agreement for this specific project with this country, and that information is available, or that information is not available. So why focus on this particular bilateral agreement on this particular project? So those two questions. But let's start with the first one. How much information do you have so far?
There's information in the budget documents. And we've talked about the debt register here. Really, that's where the information should be.
Yeah, but it isn't.
It isn't. There's information about this is the quantum, this is the creditor, this is the year it's due, interest rates. At least that is there now. The debt register hadn't been updated for some 4 years until there was some pressure. Actually, when we began talking to IMF, they then had to quickly update it, and it's 2 years. I think the latest date is 2018, right? So we have a debt register. We have an annual debt report. We've got the estimates. We've got the audit reports, because properly speaking, all indentures, these kind of restrictions, should be reported by the agency, the MDA, the agency that procures the loan, should, at the end of the financial year, report that. This information should be in the Auditor General's report. The contract, of course, can't be published with the Auditor General's report. It should be available online. So the Auditor General, the IMF in 2019 said this. This information is lacking. Actually, under our new IMF agreement, the details are supposed to now be published in the Auditor General report, because there is a gap. So one, we are not meeting the reporting standards we have set for ourselves.
And is this, I have to stop you there. Is this across board, or is this specifically with the SGR? Across board, with any kind of agreements that are done by government, bilateral, multilateral, do we see that this is habitual? That there is not enough or any information concerning the agreements that are made? Or is it this specific one with the SGR?
It's not specific to the SGR. It is across the commercial. And it might not be all the commercial, we'd have to check, but broadly it's against the commercial borrowing. And China, bilateral, for all intents and purposes, is behaving like commercial borrowing, because I've told you it's not bound by Paris, the Paris Accord. However, when it comes to the multilaterals, they themselves proactively disclose. So the government of Kenya may not post this information, but the World Bank will then put it up.
We'll put it out there.
The World Bank will give intimate details, including the socio-economic. And in fact, if you've listened to government, they'll say, yeah, we went for the bilateral and commercial because these others take too long. Why? Because the World Bank will require you do step by step. And they then release money as you comply. Whereas with the bilaterals and the commercial, that money is made available based on your own documents. And we know government of Kenya loves to cook their documents.
So let's take a break and then we continue the conversation. Wanjiru Gekonyo is our guest host today in the show, and we are having a conversation about details of the SGR contract. What has been borrowed? How much has been borrowed? How much do we need to pay? When? What are the details of those contracts? Some civil society organizations and community organizations led by Okoa Mombasa Lobby Group and the Muhuri and the Institute for Social Accountability as well have gone to court, and they're asking the court to compel the government to release this information. 7:30, time for a break. We'll be back shortly, continuing the conversation with Khalef Khalifa as well, Director of Muslims for Human Rights. Keep it right here.
This is the Situation Room, the only way to start your day. Spice up your life. 24/7, around the world, non-stop. This is Spice FM. Classic soul, R&B, smooth jazz, neo-soul, and nostalgic ballads.
Make some noise. Yeah!
You're listening to Spice FM. 24/7, around the world, non-stop. This is Spice FM.
Johnny. Johnny. Johnny, hata unisikizi. Ni nini umesoma kwa simu hivyo?
Ni gazeti ya leo napitia.
Aje sasa. Si expert.
Ni 5 bob too.
Keep up with the latest trends and news in health, real estate, finance, business, and entertainment from the convenience of your mobile phone. Dial *550*3# to access pull-out sections of the standard e-paper for only 5 shillings from your telecom line with no additional charges to enable you to stay up to date, informed, and entertained.
24/7, around the world, non-stop. This is Spice FM.
What is the best gift to celebrate a birthday? Cash, of course. What if I told you that you can get cold, hard cash for celebrating a birthday? This June, I, Olivia Otieno, is giving 10,000 shillings to 41 lucky SpiceFM listeners to celebrate my 41st birthday. That's right, this June, 41 lucky SpiceFM listeners will get 10,000 shillings cash. All you need to do is SMS the word cash to 29599. That's cash to 29599. And if your SMS is number 41 or number 1041 every Monday to Friday, you walk away with 10,000 shillings cash. Each SMS costs 10 shillings. Terms and conditions apply. Go to spicefm.co.ke for more details.
Classic soul, R&B, smooth jazz, neo soul, and nostalgic ballads.
Make some noise. Yeah.
You're listening to Spice FM.
Highs of 21 today, highs of 19 in Nyeri. It's cloudy at 13. 13 and sunny in Nakuru, highs of 24 and lows of 12. 12 will be the low in Eldoret, where it's sunny at 11 at the moment, going to highs of 23. Sunny conditions in Kisumu at 18, highs of 26 and lows of 17. It's sunny in Kakamega at 18, a good highs of 26 and lows of 14. 22 will be the low in a rainy Mombasa this morning, highs of 29. It's also raining in Malindi at 25 with highs of 26. It's going to be mostly sunny in Kampala today, highs of 25, lows of 16. And Dar es Salaam will be sunny at 21 throughout most of the morning, highs of 29. 16 will be the high in Johannesburg. It's clear at 9 at the moment, and it's continuing to rain in Lagos at 24, highs of 28 and lows of 24. Rain showers also in Kinshasa at 22. That'll be the low for today. It'll go to highs of 29.
87.9 Spice FM, Mombasa.
All right, where are you headed? In town, out of town is still going to stop you. Around Mombasa Road, we have massive traffic all the way now from the Weybridge at Mlolongo out towards General Motors. Very, very slow this morning. The ICD route also, for an option to get to the southern bypass, that also is clogged and some. The outer ring going towards North Airport Road in that general direction, also some traffic, quite some as well. Langata Road backed up all the way to the barracks, KWS. Oof, this morning is that one where you're going to clean your brow a number of times before you get where you're going today. So it's going to need a lot of patience, like we keep saying this morning. Please be extremely careful. A lot of traffic. We wait the president's arrival, and we will see, hopefully, that it opens up after that. Okay, so there's also quite a number of traffic on the bypass, and that's headed in and out of Thika Road. So let's watch out for this, guys. Help us out here. How can we help folks today? SpiceFMKE on Twitter, text on 40127.
Spice and everything nice. All right. Spice FM.
Spice up your life. Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself. Mornings done right. 94.4 Spice FM, Nairobi.
4 minutes to 8, the conversation continues. This is a Situation Room. In the room, you have Eric Latif, Nduoko, C.T. Muga, Wanjiro Gekonyo, our guest host today. And on the line is Khalef Khalifa. He's the director of Muslim for Human Rights, Muhuri. Muhuri, in coalition with the Okoa Mombasa lobby group and with collaboration with the Institute for Social Accountability, have gone to court, and they're asking the court to compel the government to release all the details surrounding the SGR. How much was borrowed? From whom? What are the details? What are the details of this contract? And basically, this is in the whole spirit of access to information, which there's a law in the country. So, Khalef, have you tried going through the normal application of information from using the Access to Information Act? Who did you apply to? What response did you get?
That is the line that initially we took, because access to information is a constitutional provision, Articles 33 and 35, that it gives Wananchi to question the government. It was put in the Constitution for a specific purpose. We wrote, as I said, to Permanent Secretary Ministry of Transport. We wrote to Managing Director of Kenya Port Authority. We wrote to Director General National Bureau of Statistics. We wrote to Registrar General State Law Office, Solicitor General, and PS National Treasury. We were hoping at least the government will come up and tell us what transpired in that agreement. So the more they keep silent, the more they make us nervous. That there is something amiss, something these people are trying to hide. And we're not asking something that is beyond our rights. We know we don't. Okay. Now, you must remember, this idea of building SGR, it has drawn a lot of interest to Kenyans because it's the biggest infrastructure, $450 billion. It's a lot of money. And it was surrounded with a lot of lies. They're telling us we'll break even. This is the fourth year. It has not break even. Africa Star, which is contracted to run SGR, they have been paid in excess of 1 billion shillings per month. In fact, running this SGR, it cost taxpayers' money almost 18 billion. And what SGR brings in is much, much less. This money that should have access to buy the vaccine, COVID vaccine, medicine in the hospital, education, name it. They're going to the Chinese. And then the question I remember quoting David D. He says, they're saying, once the containers arrived in Mombasa, within 4 hours it will be Nairobi. And the question is, you place your order in a foreign country to get those goods to Mombasa, it might take around 2 to 3 months. Why is it that it's so quick, so fast? You need, these containers are not perishable goods. They need to be at the destination very fast. It just doesn't make any sense. First, second, infrastructure of port was built privately, for almost how many years? And with, you name it, everything is here in Mombasa. Now, if Mombasa is congested, why taking all the way to Embakasi? Nairobi is already 4.5 million inhabitants. 80% of all industry in the country are stationed in Nairobi. You see, what is the point of this devolution? Devolution, it means economic, political. It means a lot of things. Okay, every county must be given opportunity to develop itself. Why everybody has to flock to Nairobi? Why can't it Bungoma and Lamu and Mombasa and Kwale and everybody, these areas develop itself? So Wananchi can also benefit rather than every time you have to look to Nairobi, you have to go to Nairobi, you have to go to Nairobi. What is it? And another thing, which most important thing, Mombasa is dying because there was no public participation. Now it is not only Mombasa, all this corridor. Now you go to Voi, you go to Makindo, you go to all these areas that were depending on this transport are dead. Okay, had the government thought of building 3 superhighways, this side and that side, all the way to Malaba, it will have reduced deaths on road almost by 90%. It would have given an opportunity to all these small towns, could have come up economically better. Okay, all that was forgotten. And I remember the first month, Macharia, PS Transport, he came up bragging. He says, we have managed to keep off 8,000 trucks off the road. Not knowing 8,000 trucks. There are thousands of families depending on that. So they've taken that bread away from them. For the sake of government infrastructure, government is going to make money. Government is about people. You build this infrastructure and you make people poor. What is the point of that, really?
When I listen to you, Halif, I hear a lot more than just the details of this particular contract. I hear you raising concerns about the viability of SGR from the very beginning. I hear you raising concerns about the effect that the SGR is having economically to Mombasa and the corridor. But I also hear you raising objections to railway as a mode of transport, which is a bit concerning for me. However, with all these things, my question is, suppose the information was released to you today, with all the concerns that you're raising about the socioeconomic impact of this one project to the region, if the information was released to you today as Muhuri, as Okoa, Mombasa, then what?
Can I ask a question just on that? Because you've also asked for the environmental impact assessment report. Now, the questions you've just addressed would have been raised in the economic impact assessment. We have in Kenya a law governing the environmental impact assessment that requires public participation that is supposed to precede this kind of investment. So if that report exists and it's released, then I think it will be important to see where did government assess the number of jobs that will be lost, the mitigation factors that will be necessary, because environmental impact assessment will say, if we do this, this population will be affected. We must therefore take the following measures. So if we get that report, we will see what it said. Our suspicion is that that report does not exist. Or if it does, maybe it even says do not proceed. Because I believe this is one of the documents that is being sought through this ATI. Helif, have we seen an environmental impact assessment?
No, we haven't seen that one. And more importantly, when the government comes and says all the containers must, that word, that all the containers must go on SGR, that is against the law. I'm the one, if I'm an importer, I will decide which mode of transport I want it to go. Then the government keeps lying and lying and lying. It is true, it is cheaper transport on SGR from Mombasa to Embakasi or to Suswa. It is true. But there are underlying costs. You load a container here in a truck, then goes from port to its final destination. Okay? But when you load in an SGR, they will dump it either in Naivasha or in Embakasi. Then the transporter has to find another transport that is another additional cost. Second, those containers must also go back to Mombasa. Okay, that is also another cost. Now, when you calculate all these costs, it is much, much expensive.
Elif, let me ask you a question, if I may. Given the number on the subject of containers, is the SGR in a position to actually transport the volume of containers that come to the port of Mombasa on a daily, monthly, yearly basis? Are they able to actually transport them all?
No, they are not.
All right. If let's say we had 3 railway lines doing the same thing, would we be able to transport the containers?
Look, Kenya is not an industrialized country. Take any industrial country in the world, Japan, America, Europe, they have vast railway
networks,
infrastructure, networks, but they don't buy trucks from operating. And trucks, they're operating into thousands or millions. But this government was trying to completely kill. And another thing, you know, Mombasa has no economy other than port. We have no agriculture. We have nothing. We depend on this port. And if Mombasa dies because of port, the coast province also will be affected. Okay. So taking the economy from one region to the other, we said that is not fair. More so, had there been public participation, probably the government would have known that people are against. And we're not against SGR, by the way. We're not. But we want commercially decisions to be taken, not force people. You know, it will come a time we wonder why government is not telling Kenyans, don't fly with any other airlines. You fly Kenya Airways because this is national interest. Why they don't do that? So this is our problem.
There's Okoa Mombasa. I've been thinking about this. Why the name Okoa Mombasa? Why? What does Mombasa need to be Okoa'd from?
It needs Mombasa to be Okoa'd. Look,
Mina itwa Muga.
there is a problem. Muga, brother Muga.
Yes.
Let me tell you this. We were the most affected economically. Okay? Because when the port was operating, you have all this personnel from warehousing. You know how port operates.
I do.
All these people moved from Mombasa to the other side. Okay? Now the employment, you go to housing today in Mombasa, you see so many shops. The price now they have come down almost 40%. If you want to buy property today in Mombasa, it was not as it was 4 or 5 years ago. Everything has dropped. Okay, this is our worry. You should not raise economy of the government by squeezing other part of the country down. Right. And what we want is just truth. Tell us the truth, because we are sure these guys. You see the Chinese, at least other lenders, as Wanjiru has said, they're all looking for the interest. Even IMF, World Bank, they all look on the interest. Okay, but at least they have got their laws. Sometimes they back with human rights violations, but Chinese don't give a damn. Even if we kill each other today, government kills 100 people or 10,000 people, Chinese will still doing business with Kenya government without even giving a question, and that is all. And why should we impose by Chinese laws? Okay, how? Arbitration in China?
I want to go back to my question. We'll come back to this one of arbitration. I want to go back to my question. So first of all, I think it would be an assumption, and I think I have a belief that it would be a fallacious assumption to assume that this project commenced without an environmental and social impact assessment.
Our records show that it did.
That
Our
there was no
records
ESIA.
It's not in the public domain.
That doesn't mean that it didn't happen.
The World Bank's assessment showed that, it doesn't mean it didn't happen. So let them produce it. And if it was done, it didn't follow procedure because there is no evidence of the public participation meetings on the ground.
Okay.
In other words, this project was taken from the Vision 2030, put into the MTP2, and in the process it changed because Vision 2030 proposed to rehabilitate the existing railway line, which was going to be a fraction of the cost, and which the World Bank then argued this is sustainable because we don't have the volume of traffic to build a new railway line. And they gave examples of countries like Brazil that are using a rehabilitated line. So number one, the cost and the viability and the returns, let alone the project that was then put into the MTP2 that then sought to even build this inland container depot, that then sought to build a new railway line.
Okay, hold on. Let's just stick with the question first, so that we can respond to it. About environment is social impact assessment.
Evidence is, in fact, that they signed the contract before cabinet approved.
Had approved an ESIA.
No, had approved
the project.
The project. So ESIA, hakukuwa na time. ESIA has, listen,
so
you have
my
to
question,
understand
can I ask
that
the question
the law provides restrictions. ESIA process is an oversight mechanism inbuilt. So ESIA does not work well with budgeted corruption. This is what we are trying to say in so
Eric,
many
you want to ask a
words.
question?
Yes.
Ask your question.
So, now since you seem to be aware to have the information that there is no ESIA, and you seem to have the information about the origin of the project, you seem to have a lot of information about the project. Suppose the court grants the order today, and you get all the information that you seek today, then what is the plan going forward? What do you want to do with this information in hand, Halef?
I think many people will go to jail. I have no doubt about it. And the biggest reason why these people are keeping this information in their chest, even after the president himself ordered that we release that agreement, but he couldn't. Kwa sababu kuna madhambi mengi sana kwa hii. People will go to jail. I'm telling you. That's why they don't release.
So are you saying that once you get this information, then you go through it, then you start criminal proceedings? Is that the agenda? What is the agenda? That's what I'm asking.
I'm telling you, read my lips. If somebody do economic sabotage against Kenyans, that person belongs to jail. And we'll go after each and every one of them.
That it's a plain and obvious truth. You still haven't answered my question. The plan, once you have been at this since 2018, you have written to all these agencies in government asking for information. You have not received any response from these agencies of government. You have now gone to court, seeking the court to compel these agencies of government to release the information that what have you been wanting to do with the information? That is the basic question I'm asking.
Or when the information is gotten, will it then be taken to the same agencies who've been reluctant to give you the information in the first place and then ask them to begin proceedings of prosecution?
Yeah, what's the game plan?
What is it?
The accountability process proceeds on this. Number one, there is a law.
Mm-hmm.
So the line we are taking is the law. If this law was breached, we must then take the due measures. The accountability process is not based on, we know the court will give us this ruling. Our role is to get the evidence. Our role is to follow the due process and to expect that the mechanisms that exist will do what they need to do. But beyond that, there is something called social sanction. Once that information is available and people know that there were violations, that really economic sabotage was committed, the people of Kenya then will begin to exercise their options. When you're in a state of capture, and I've shared this before, because we're in a state of capture, the judiciary is under duress, parliament is in the pocket of the executive, you don't sit and wait for the regime to topple itself. It will never do so. You must act, get the evidence, pursue the mechanisms, mobilize the public, and let's see what happens. We do our best, and the citizens will surprise you. They'll be the ones to come up in arms. And I have spoken for Khalid. I'm sure he has.
Okay. So if I attempt to answer my question,
better views.
If I attempt to answer my question, so you want the information, and then you want now that information to be made public. Do you, for example, as TISA, do you want then, after the information is public, to go ahead and create public awareness forums so that people can start interrogating this information? Because information can be made public and it's available to TISA and it's available to Muhuri and Okoa Mombasa. But if you don't have a plan of what you want to do with that information, that's what I'm asking.
But Khalif has told you, take it to court. You prosecute these people.
Who to court?
You prosecute. You see, you can't prosecute those who have committed
without
economic
evidence.
Without evidence. So we are looking for evidence. What part is not clear, Khalif? We are looking for evidence.
Okay.
And also there's a lesson there so that future leaders do not manipulate the law to undermine an entire region of the country. Contrary to the principles and aspirations of the Constitution.
All right. Khalif, as we conclude the conversation, you are where you are right now. You are in court. As you speak to your fellow members and those that support the Okoa Mombasa movement, what would you like to tell them this morning?
We are behind everybody's interest. But we are trying to tell the government that we are not going to relent. We want to get the truth. And the truth will open up the doors for our next action. If somebody has wronged us economically, there is a price to pay. We are not going to relent. Even though we know how government disobey court orders, we shall be very consistent. We will never stop. No matter what they do, we'll never stop. This country, from where it started, where we have reached, it is because there are people who stood up and said no. Okay? And will still say no. And we'll fight for the rights of the people. The Constitution is ours. Okay? And we'll exercise our right in that Constitution. Eventually, the truth will come up. If we don't get justice today, this people will never stay in power forever. But accountability is the most important thing. Otherwise, this country will be a banana republic. We have two sets of laws. There are those top there with impunity. They can break the law and nothing happens to them. But we tell them, time will come. Believe me, time will come.
That's very well said. Thank you very much, Halif Khalifa, and we always support such kind of citizen action. Asante sana. Halif Khalifa is the director of Muslim for Human Rights. All the best with this particular petition and all other accountability measures that you're taking. Have a lovely day.
Thank you very much.
Keep it right here. The conversations continue into the next hour. This is The Situation Room. It's Kenya's biggest conversation. We're live streaming the show on SpiceFM KE, YouTube, Facebook, and Twitter. In addition to being on SpiceFM in Nairobi, Mombasa, Kisumu, Nakuru, Eldoret, Nyeri, Malindi. In the next hour, we'll also be live on KTN Home. We'll have another conversation. Good morning. It's now 8 a.m.
Spice up your life. The latest news from around the world. 94.4 Spice FM.
This is Newswire. I'm Dennis Aseto. Kitui Governor Charity Ngilu wants governors to find ways they can sustain themselves even as they wait for money from Treasury. She says while she acknowledges that it is tough for the counties, shutting down is not the best solution as this will inconvenience those that are in need of the services. World Bank and the African Union have announced plans to support direct vaccine procurement for Africa. The pair is expected to partner in supporting the Africa Vaccine Acquisition Task Team initiative with resources to allow countries purchase and deploy vaccines to 400 million people. The World Bank says it has a $12 billion war chest available to help countries purchase and distribute vaccines in addition to addressing readiness issues. Kenya Power has unveiled a self-service portal enabling customers to apply for electricity connections remotely. Customers will be required to submit land and property ownership documents, ID cards and PIN certificates while making the contactless applications. This follows a pilot operation which saw 7,000 new connections processed. Differences in NAT are deepening by the day as the scheduled elections draw nearer. NAT's national chairperson Collins Oyu now accuses the Union Secretary General Wilson Sossion of developing election fever and is planning to disrupt the exercise which he has vowed to counter. And Sports CS Ambassador Amina Mohamed has expressed satisfaction with the level of preparedness ahead of the World Rally Championship in Kenya after a final inspection of the Service Park and Media Center at the Kenya Wildlife Training Institute, Naivasha. Accompanied by members of the steering committee as well as the Principal Secretary Joe Okudo, Amina praised the commitment and resolve of all the stakeholders to stage the world-class competition. This is Newswire. I'm Dennis Aseto.
.5 Spice FM, Kisumu.
Okay, so still quite some traffic in Nairobi this morning, and we're still seeing the effects of that. In and outbound on Mombasa Road, still quite heavy. Langata Road has taken a snail's pace, and it looks like it's going to be that way for some time. We're looking at Thika Superhighway coming into the CBD, connecting with Kiambu Road, the Pangani Underpass, out towards the Globe Cinema overpass. Very, very slow. Wangari Maathai, always your way to go in the mornings. How bad is it on Juja Road? It is actually quite slow this morning as you get into the city. Landys Road. Not looking good at all. Waiyaki Way, there are vehicles that are bumping into one another. There's accidents all over the place. It's not happening. And then joining with James Gishuro, that doesn't look much better either. Use the Red Hill bypass, easier into the city from there. Everywhere you look today, there's a spot of traffic. We're going to have to be very, very careful as we ply the routes today. Okay, where else? You can tell us. SpiceFM KE on Twitter. Talk to us there. Text us on 40127. It's Wednesday. We want to keep things moving.
This is The Situation Room, the home of hard-hitting political commentary and penetrating insights about the state of the nation. This is a talk radio experience like no other. The Situation Room, a place for hard truths, debates, and elevated conversations. The Situation Room, witty, political, engaging, deep, controversial. In the room, we have C.T. Muga, researcher, academic, seasoned political observer, a fountain of wisdom in these politically uncertain times. Ndu Oko, Nigerian by birth, Kenyan by choice, communications expert, Pan-Africanist, a truth seeker and believer in people power, and Eric Latif, agent provocateur, the man in the chair, seasoned journalist, news hound, a man who believes in punching up, not down. This is The Situation Room, the only way to start your day.
It's 4 minutes after 8. Kenya's biggest conversation gets into the third hour. Thank you very much for tuning in, SpiceFM online. And those who are joining us now on KTN Home, you'll be with us for the next 1 hour. We begin this, as we begin all other hours, with the day's proverb from C.T. Muga.
Right. A happy man marries the girl he loves. A happier man loves the girl he married.
A happy girl marries the girl
Oh, yeah.
Start again, Eric.
he loves.
Okay.
Okay, go ahead. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
You're doing well.
A happier man loves the girl he married.
Mm-hmm.
Happiness is a personal
The first
choice.
man uses love as a noun. The second man uses love as a verb.
Mm-hmm. And the entire activity is an adjective.
It's ensconced in happiness.
Yes, exactly.
Now, it basically, the bottom line here is marriage is equals happiness. Now, the level of happiness in this marriage depends
On the girl.
on you.
Oh, no.
On you.
No,
On what
no,
you
no.
choose to do, whether you choose to operate.
Girl constant.
Yes.
Man.
Did love begin before marriage? Then you continues with happiness.
Yes. So.
Did love develop after marriage?
Continues.
Happiness squared.
Yes. But if you want to be philosophical,
So if you
about
really
it,
want to be very happy, just marry and then fall in love. 3 dots.
I didn't see
quite
that.
easily done.
I didn't see that on
And the
camera.
math is complete.
If we call the
and
person
you
who
got
did this
an
proverb
A.
at this point, he might be wondering, what?
Well, you know something? Eric has actually thrown in an extremely interesting perspective.
Of course he has.
That's the whole point about Proverbs. Each one sort of like reads into it and gleans whatever it is they feel sort of like tallies with their outlook towards life. So you just marry and then the rest will follow.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, the rest, the rest is also quite interesting.
Start with marriage.
Yes.
Then you'll be very happy.
And what if you're tied to the hips in one of these things where you actually cannot move? And I'm not talking about the actual marriage that people have between human beings. Like I'm married to Kenya. Okay, I'm a citizen of this country. And everything that happens in this country ties me into the activities that are involved in this country.
Now, if you learn to love Kenya in this marriage, you'll be the happier man.
I actually love Kenya, and I'm unhappier as a result of the love I have for this country. Because if I loved it less, I wouldn't be living here.
You need to change your perspective. Wahenga walisema. Let's have a conversation about justice. And in the entire justice ecosystem, there are those that are happy because they seek and get justice. There are those that remain unhappy because they seek and they don't get justice. And then there are those who are still just not even aware of what's going to happen because they have sought and they have not yet gotten their justice for reasons that we shall hear about. It's an issue about delayed justice and what delayed justice is all about. What delayed justice then means to the person who's seeking justice. What delayed justice means to an entire society. When you have a system that does not give you justice as fast as you should receive justice, what does that do to the society as a whole? To join us in this conversation are two officials from the International Justice Missions. One of them is Vincent Chahale. He's the Senior Manager, Justice System Interventions. He joins us in the studio. Good morning, Vincent.
Good morning, Latif.
Good to have you in the studio. Welcome to the Situation Room.
Pleasure's all mine. Thank you.
Normally, the other seat that is here is usually the hot seat. This one is the hotter seat for guests, special guests such as yourself. We hope that you'll have a fairly good time here. The other guest that joins us on the line, and her name is Pino Ercolano. She is a program attorney for Justice System Interventions at the International Justice Missions. Pino, good morning.
Good morning.
Good to have you on the show as well. Karibu sana.
Thank you so much.
I guess I just want to start with you, Vincent. What does International Justice Missions do? Who are you? What do you do? Where do you do it? And for how long have you been doing it?
International Justice Mission is a non-governmental organization resident in Kenya and other 10 countries. We seek to protect the vulnerable in society from violence by helping them access justice. That is what we do. We are stationed here in Nairobi. Presently, we have two programs running. One is we do a program on police abuse of power here in Nairobi and its environs. And we also have a program that we started in the coastal region that deals with the commercial sexual exploitation of children. Basically, what we do is to help the vulnerable in society access justice.
Right. So there are many cases where people would find themselves in that entire justice system. They are seeking justice, but for some reason, it takes long. So you have gone to court, the case takes long to develop before the judgment and the ruling is made. In some cases, you are lucky to be out on bond. Well, there's still some property of yours that's attached. In some cases, you are in remand for the entire duration of time. How do you help such people?
Well, one, we seek to help those we believe are innocent in the first instance. In the second instance, we help the families of the victims of the perpetrators of crimes. So what we do is that we give legal representation to those we believe are innocent for one reason or another, and we have our own investigations that we do before we engage in that. But then also we realize that where we have victims, for example, where a person is killed, then we will represent the family so that we make sure that the interests of the family, because they want to see justice, but they might not be able to access justice if they can't afford legal representation. So we represent those families and help them access justice.
Okay. Last week we had a conversation, interestingly enough, on Friday, and we hear that, quite a number of people in prisons, in remand, for petty crimes, right? They have not been able to have trial because one of the main reasons being that they cannot afford legal representation. I think that ties in with exactly what you've just said. But then also maybe we can go to you, Pina, and ask that, all right, so we are seeing many people stuck in jail, in prison, in remand because they're unable to access legal representation. Now, is this one of the issues, and how can it be dealt with? Because if we say justice delayed is justice denied, but they end up being stuck in the system for a very, very long time. How then are we able to provide kind of interventions for them? And how has it been over the years?
Yes, indeed. Justice delayed is justice denied. In fact, excuse the ODPP had conducted a remand review back in 2018. And one of the things that they did was they went around to prisons and they checked, they had a look at remand prisons, that is, and they looked at the type of offenses and the reasons why people were there. And they discovered exactly what you've said, is that a lot of people had been in remand for petty offenses, for offenses that didn't warrant anything more than 6 months in prison or a fine. And the sadness of which was that they had been in remand for even a longer period of time. So the ODPP embarked on a journey, which we actually started with them in 2016, where we had worked alongside them to do a baseline study where we looked at how they make the decision to charge. We did a case review where we looked at a few files in a few stations around the country together with ODPP. We interviewed prosecutors and magistrates. And when we did that, we discovered that there were issues concerning the making of the decision to charge, where police officers would bring files or charge sheets, and the files didn't have sufficient evidence. So a lot of the cases that we reviewed actually did not have sufficient evidence to charge those people. And of course, once again, what was discovered was that a lot of the offenses were actually petty offenses, right? So the DPP appointed a task force in 2018 to create the decision to charge guidelines, which were actually drafted and launched last year in July. The aim of which is to assist prosecutors in making the decision to charge. And there's a decision to charge which requires a prosecutor to look at the file that's brought to them, look at the evidence, and make a decision as to whether that case warrants or that suspect should be charged, right, based on the evidence before them. If there isn't sufficient evidence, they work together with the investigator to be able to get the evidence required, or if not, then they make the decision not to charge. That's one of the ways of clearing the amount of people who are going through the justice system, of course. The other thing that ODPP have done is they launched the guidelines for plea bargaining, diversion, and they're also using alternatives to prosecution. This is all an effort to clear, these petty offenses from going into the criminal justice system. Juvenile offenders, they'll be recommended for diversion, which is fantastic. Something that we had collaborated with ODPP with is we went to Lamu in 2019 to do the same thing, the review of the remand prisons, and we found a lot of people there had been drug users. And so instead of charging them, diversion was considered to send them to a Red Cross center that was actually launched during that time we were there for such offenders. So using these means, alternative means of justice, has become more and more popular. And even the judiciary has launched guidelines on the same, of using traditional dispute mechanisms, which is fantastic.
There are cases, Pina, where in the pursuit of justice, the systems, the prosecutor, the police, and then the prosecutor would end up committing some injustice. So, for instance, there's a particular case where people are arrested en masse in this particular office, and you're all taken to a police station. You spend a weekend in a police station, and then come Tuesday, the prosecutor decides, okay, I'm just going to charge the two of you. These other three, I'm not going to charge. But you see, this person has spent 3 days, 4 days in police custody. And the first time the police came to court, they said, we'd like some more time to hold them as we conduct our investigations. Now, do you have ways of helping such people? Because the person to whom an injustice has been committed, I had absolutely nothing to do with the crime being taken to court, yet I spent time behind bars. Is there any way of such people getting their own justice?
For the people who have been arrested?
Yes. I'll give you an example. There's a time when last year we actually spoke about this for a while. There was a media story about child trafficking and children being sold. Some officers from Mama Lucy were arrested and taken to police custody. Then they were taken to court on the first day, and police requested for more time to hold them as they conduct investigations. And the next time when they go to court, some of them were released because the prosecutor said, I have actually nothing against such and such officers. This one can go home. I have a case to commence on these remaining officers. Now, the ones that have spent a weekend in police cells, and then the prosecutor just comes and casually says, no, by the way, I had nothing against you. What do you do to those?
So on the criminal justice sector side, the first thing that ODPP, NPS are trying to address is sensitization, and something that we've worked alongside IPOA, IAU, and NPS has been sensitizing police officers, training them on investigations so that when they are arresting such people, they have sufficient evidence, of course. So that is from the one side. On the other side of the part of the victim, there are ways to be able to still engage the justice system and actually going forward and saying that they were maliciously prosecuted or they were arrested without having any evidence. So there are ways to be able to address this, and people are compensated for such things. But of course, the bigger issue needs to be dealt with, which is we need to make sure that when people are being arrested, there is sufficient evidence showing that,
crimes. For example, technology has come with new frontiers of crimes. So crimes keep on increasing. So one is that we must strengthen our system, our criminal justice system. We must strengthen our judiciary. We must strengthen our law enforcement agencies so that we have investigations, quality investigations that can sustain convictions and that can enable speedy trials. But beyond even the criminal justice system, in my view, one of the things that is creating this unfortunate and sad scenario is our degradation of the value system. In this sense, our value system, which has over the years and over the decades degraded, has increased crime. There were times in the history of this nation when, assuming, just to give an illustration, assuming you are traveling and you had a lot of luggage, you could leave it by the side of the road and go and get somebody to come and help you carry. Right now, you cannot do that. In fact, you'd be considered foolish to do that. Why? Because our value system has degraded, which means then that crime has to inevitably go up, which means, therefore, that we have to spend a lot to get justice because we have to employ more judges, we have to employ more magistrates, and we have to spend more resources so that we can bring a case to conclusion. Look at it this way. You can imagine a murder case, for example. From the time the offense is committed, a lot of resources and time is spent in investigations, then prosecution, then the case delays for about 9 years, and we've had cases, even prominent cases which were in the public limelight, which are still pending litigation. Mm-hmm. You will remember the Venezuelan ambassador, for example, who was murdered in 2012. That case is still pending, yet it had a lot of public limelight. So you can imagine the amount of resources and time that is being spent to realize justice. And so we must have a national conversation on this. Look at our value system, look at our criminal justice system, see how can we strengthen it, answer the big questions, how can we make justice move speedily. At the same time, we must take into account the effect that the whole of this process has on victims. Because you can imagine a family that lost a son, a father, and they have to wait for 9-10 years before they get justice. And sometimes they might not even get, because with a fraction of time, then it means that the quality of evidence that is brought before the court is affected, because people forget things, And so it's a conversation that we need to have, a national conversation, and see how do we help the whole sector, criminal justice system. But then more importantly, how do we improve as a society so that we have less crimes?
How do we improve as a society? And I think that's one of the very big questions, is that there are certain things that you cannot legislate on, that you cannot force one or another individual to behave in a certain manner, which one would say is morally upright or not. So it becomes a very sticky situation, because here you are saying, you know what, we don't have the resources to be able to hire enough when it comes to judicial and legal officers as a state. But at the same time that you're seeing there's moral degradation, as you have said, what is the nexus of all of this to say, okay, how do we legislate and say, please, folks, essentially moralize? Because on this other hand, we're not able to keep up with this.
It's more and more expensive to
Right.
actually finance that end than maybe to finance the beginning, where it's looking at working on the moral system and the moral fabric of the society. How do you make people just feel that it's easier for us, it's better for all of us if we behaved in a certain way? Maybe that's it's gonna cost you less, but it's gonna take you more time. Striking that balance is the conversation that we'll have. Let's take a break at this point, having a conversation on delayed justice, recasting a vision for the justice system in the country. We have two guests from the International Justice Missions. One of them is Vincent Chahale. He's in the studio. He's a senior manager for Justice System Interventions. And the other one is Pina Colano. She's a program attorney for Justice System Interventions. 25 minutes after 8. We are live on SpiceFM. We are online and we are also on KTN Home. We'll be back shortly. Good morning.
24/7 around the world, non-stop. This is Spice FM. Classic soul, R&B, smooth jazz, neo soul, and nostalgic ballads.
Make some noise. Yeah.
You're listening to Spice FM. 24/7 around the world, non-stop. This is Spice FM.
Je, una dalili zifuatazo? Joto jingi mwilini, kutetemeka, kuhara, kutapika, kuumwa na kichwa, baridi na homa. Basi unahitaji kutembelea kituo cha afya haraka ili kupimwa iwapo kuna maradhi ya malaria na kupokea matibabu halisi. Tafadhali hakikisha wewe na jamii yako mnapimwa mnapohisi dalili za malaria, na iwapo malaria itapatikana, mhudumu wa afya atakupa dawa zilizopendekezwa ziitwazo ACT. Hakikisha unameza dawa hizo inavyohitajika hadi ukamilishe. Kumbuka, sio salama kujitibu nyumbani kwa sababu dalili za malaria ni sawa na zile za maradhi mengine. Endelea kujikinga na kukinga jamii yako kwa kulala ndani ya neti za mbu zilizotibiwa kila siku, kila msimu. Pamoja, tuendelee kuangamiza malaria. Ujumbe huu umeletwa kwako na Wizara ya Afya na UNICEF.
Kubash Hood Edition is here, and we are all about the youth. They are young, energetic, ambitious, and they are the future. Kubash Hood Edition is all about creating brighter futures for young people, empowering them from issues mental health, peer pressure, innovation, and even parenting. Our show gives young people the practical and insightful support they need. From different segments from dance battles, shout-outs, Artist of the Week, to even Gava Corner. Kubash Hood Edition. We help them in building their confidence and motivation so they can continue to dream big. Kubash Hood Edition. Coming to a hood near you. Live on KTN Home every Saturday 1:30 p.m. to 3:30 p.m.
24/7 around the world, non-stop. This is Spice FM.
Living isn't just breathing. Living is about taking it all in. Living is not just getting by. Living is taking the roads less traveled. Living isn't just eating. Living is about the art of wining and dining. Living isn't just doing the mundane. Living is about savoring the finer things in life. Because living is not a chore. Living is an art. In the new season of The Art of Living, we explore unearthed gems and discover what makes them home away from home.
All right, so we're still looking at some
Join
cloudy
Nailante
conditions in Nairobi, mostly cloudy for parts of the morning at 15 degrees. And now there's a haze over the skies, highs of 21 and lows of 14. Light rainy in Nyeri at 13, highs of 19. 24 will be the high in Nakuru, where it's sunny at 14, and sunny conditions also in Eldoret at 13, highs of 23 and lows of 10. 17 will be the low in Kisumu, where it's sunny at 20. It's also sunny in Kakamega, highs of 26 and lows of 14. Rain showers continue in parts of Mombasa, highs of 29, highs of 26 in Malindi, where it's also raining lightly in some parts. Partly sunny conditions in Kampala, highs of 25. It's sunny in Dar es Salaam at 22, highs of 29 and lows of 21. And we'll see sunny conditions through and through in Joburg at 12, highs of 16 and lows of 5. It's raining in Lagos at 24, highs of 28 and lows of 24. And light rain in Kinshasa at 22, highs of 29 and lows of 21.
Sugar and spice and everything nice, everything nice. SpiceFM.
All right, it continues on most major roads in Nairobi this morning. Mombasa Road still hot and heavy in and outbound. Still looking at Langata Road where it started earlier and it's likely to go through most parts of this morning. As you get towards the KWS outbound is very, very slow. Bagathi will give you some good reprieve getting into the CBD, but then it's still packed. We're looking at traffic from the Nyeri Stadium roundabout through to Westlands. Huru Highway is going to have those glitches and blotches throughout because we see that parts of the road will be shut down because of the construction and it's going to carry on for some time, so prepare. Jogo Road into the city, Landis Road connecting there from it's very slow into the CBD, but it's expected at this time. We're in the middle of traffic hour after all. Let's wait and see what happens there. Kiambu Road jam-packed. 2 times 2 is 4. It's going to become 8 in a very short while, and that's the number of lanes trying to connect with Muthaiga Square. So this one, swallow some patience and then keep some for later. SpiceFM KE, talk to us if you need to. Text us as well, 40127.
Spice up your life. Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself. Mornings done right. 94.4 Spice FM, Nairobi.
Kenya's biggest conversation continues. In the room this morning is Eric Latif, Ndu, of course, C.T. Muga, and Vincent Chahale. He's a senior manager, Justice System Interventions at the International Justice Missions. And joining us on the line is Pina Ercolano, who's a program attorney for Justice System Interventions at the same organization, International Justice Missions. Before we took the break, Vincent, Ndu had asked you, you had explained what we need to do to get there. We need to look at our justice, improving the entire justice system and ecosystem, and then also looking at ourselves as a society and what we need to do. And I think Ndu had asked you, so how do we get there? How do we do all these things? What do we need to do? Where do we need to start?
Yes. First, I think we need to start by looking at the criminal justice system, the judiciary. One, we need to improve the physical infrastructure of the judiciary. Right now, we have stations within the judiciary where you find a station that has 5 magistrates, yet the courts are 3. So it means that 2 magistrates have to wait. They have to have alternate days when they can access the courts. And so they have to deal only with matters that they can deal with in chambers on these other days. So we have to improve the physical infrastructure. The former Chief Justice had said that he would want to see a high court in each and every county and a magistrate's court in each and every sub-county. It's a vision that probably the new Chief Justice needs to pick up because that would make it much easier. Then we need to strengthen our oversight agencies. And the first oversight agency, the supreme one, is Parliament. I tend to feel as though Parliament relaxes at times. For example, when you're having when the cohesion is not there between the executive and the judiciary, then it is Parliament to come in and try and bridge that gap. Because when we have instances where the executive and the judiciary are not working in harmony, then it means the effect will be felt on the criminal justice system. So
you want to strengthen Parliament?
No. I said that we want to strengthen oversight systems, oversight institutions.
And the example you gave is Parliament.
Yes, Parliament is an oversight. It's the supreme oversight institution.
Is there another institution we can refer to outside Parliament?
Yes.
Which one?
Civil society.
Okay,
is
because
an institution.
Citizens.
I'm asking this because if I look at the track record of our Parliament when it comes to oversight, with specific reference to our love for borrowing and choosing really genuinely expensive loans, if they have failed in that one small thing, something which is patently clear, can we actually rely on them to actually provide oversight on something as serious as the law, the practice of it.
It's their constitutional duty. So,
Yes, it
so,
is.
so
Do they know that?
How I view it is this: the fact that they have not performed does not mean we should not put them to task to perform. It is our civic duty to put them to task, and it starts by the leaders that we elect. So we still have to push on, even if there are those who feel that they've not done their bit. We still have to push on. We can't say that we now have to look for other institutions because they're the ones who have the constitutional duty.
You know, with Parliament, it's not that they haven't done their bit. They have failed dismally.
Well, maybe that's a different conversation, which I wouldn't then want to get into.
Perhaps
But
maybe we could ask it this way, because you said strengthen the oversight agencies, and with the example of Parliament, what do we need to do to strengthen Parliament? What do you have in mind?
What I have in mind is petitioning Parliament when issues arise within the justice system. I'll give you an example. We have court awards running into billions of shillings. We have people who are waiting for their awards from government. They had their judgments 10 years ago. Yeah, it is something that as members of the public, we should petition Parliament to intervene and even allocate money for that, because it has a drastic effect when somebody waits for the fruits of his judgment and he cannot enjoy them.
So it's calling for accountability on the oversight agencies.
That's
because I think when you say strengthen, it's like, we give them more money, we give them more power. They have so much power, these people, so much money. Maybe it's just for us to put them in check, and citizens demanding accountability on the oversight agencies that they've put to ensure that these things work. Correct?
Right, I would agree with you on that.
Okay. Those are the 2 points that you had said. I think you had another point on what we need to do to get there, to improve our systems.
Yes. We also need to invest quite a lot in technology. Right now, we've seen during the pandemic, the judiciary, for example, you can file cases online. You can file civil cases online and make applications online, and even some applications can be had online. Though this is just within Nairobi and its environs, then we need to invest more in technology by making all courts in Kenya, making the citizens being able to file applications and suits online. It would help a lot. It also takes a lot of judicial time when the judges and magistrates have to record the proceedings by hand. So we should improve in terms of stenographers and all that. I know some little effort has been made towards this end, but we should see how to hasten to make proceedings move even faster. So those are some of the things we can do.
I have two to add on to what you're saying, and I think they're critical, especially when you're talking about this delayed justice. One of them, in my opinion, is the investigative agencies, and ensuring that we completely and fully equip our police service and our DCI so that they are bringing the right suspects into the system, so that the people who they need to protect are also getting the protection. Because if the police then are not well equipped, if the police don't have the equipment that they need to conduct swift and thorough investigations, then that's how you end up with 10 people facing one charge, and the police are not exactly sure who exactly they should be charging. And then the DPP as well, with all the work that has been done in the office of the DPP, maybe is there anything more that needs to be done to the office of the DPP to ensure that the prosecutions commence on time? That when they receive the files from the investigative agencies, the EACC, the DCI and the others, they act swiftly so that the prosecution starts on time?
Well, I agree with what you've said, and maybe I can add this. One, I think that looking at the whole criminal justice system chain, the office that I would commend for having made a lot of strides actually is the office of the ODPP. Since it was severed from the Attorney General's office, there have been a lot of improvements, and they've taken over all the prosecutions, as opposed to a situation where we used to have police prosecute some cases. And there have been a lot that has been done. When we talk about the police, I think for me, emphasis should be laid upon training, because looking at the history of the police in Kenya, more emphasis is laid on physical attributes as opposed to technical attributes. Yet, as crime evolves, it becomes more complex. You will remember anytime there are recruitments, you'll see people running around a field. Some are told to open their mouth. If you're found with a missing tooth, you do not qualify, as if one of the job descriptions is to go and bite. Yet, what we need to invest in more is the technical aspect, because they are going to deal with criminals who use technology, for example. Look at investigation of cases like corruption cases. They are very complex. They require a lot of learning. So we need to invest that in terms of the police. Of course, also what you said about adding them resources and modern equipments for investigations.
Something I'd like to ask. I mean, even as I listen to what you're saying, and I actually agree with you, the thinking behind it is sound. Does our constitution give us the leeway to actually build, create, strengthen alternate mechanisms for resolving some of these issues that eventually end up in our courts? Because when you talk about people who are in our prison system, the vast majority are not these hardcore criminals and murderers and the people you sort of like feel these ones actually need to be here. Can some of these things not be resolved by other mechanisms? I know there's mediation, there's arbitration. How strengthened is this? Is it possible to have, say, for instance, authorities like the chiefs resolving some of these issues? I mean, is it possible to cascade it so that many of the things that actually end up even within the magistrates' courts don't even end up there, that they are actually resolved so that you lighten the burden? Because investing into the system, as you say, yes, that's a good plan. But what about something that perhaps is not as cost demanding as some of the suggestions you've made? Is it possible?
Well, we did first segregate things here. One, we have civil disputes and we have criminal disputes. In criminal disputes, it is a crime against the state. That's why if you assault me, it will be the republic versus you. Yeah, and so we would not encourage, in my view, settlement of criminal disputes outside the judicial system. Okay. What we need to do towards that end is perhaps create more petty crime courts where such petty crimes can be dealt with speedily, and also rely on non-custodial sentences. Actually, I was, some years back, I was a member of the Judiciary Task Force on Sentencing, where we suggested that we should place more reliance on non-custodial sentences so that we don't overcrowd the prisons with people with petty offenses. However, when it comes to civil disputes, then we can invest more in mediation. Right now, there is a court-warranted mediation, and there are mediators, trained mediators, who are assisting the courts, and it's doing very well in resolving civil disputes. So we should then differentiate the two systems that way. But I think more investment in petty crimes courts and reliance on non-custodial sentences would help decongest the prisons, for example, and it would help speedy trials.
And why has this not been done? Because you clearly understand it and you know what needs to be done.
I wish I had the power to do it. I would do it very fast. Well, it takes, we are improving day by day. I think where the Kenyan justice system is now may not be where it was 20 years ago. But certainly, I think we should lay more importance to it and invest more money. It doesn't help, for example, I think it was about 2 years ago, when the development budget of the judiciary was 50 million. What can they do with 50 million? So we need to invest more resources in the judiciary, even as we deal with other issues that are beyond the criminal justice system. Because I also feel that, for example, it is not fair to a society for it to spend so much money, for example, in fighting corruption. We give EACC about 1 billion shillings every year. That can be used to do so many other things. If we just stop being corrupt, it's that simple. We can just stop being corrupt and you spend less in fighting corruption, and that money goes to do other things.
You sound like you would wave a wand and just say, well, you know what, Kenya, it's now time for you for individuals to stop being corrupt, and at the wave of the wand, everybody would stop. And this is what I was saying. It is extremely difficult, and I think that's why people don't do it, to legislate on morality. You cannot ask people, well, you can, but will they stop? Then now you are dealing with the choice and character of an individual to which you cannot go then and apply the law.
Yes, and that's why I'm saying that we have to go beyond the law. How do we inculcate a culture? How do we raise our children? How do we raise our youth that they have certain values, that they would not engage in certain acts like crime? How do we do it? It's a conversation that we need to have. But at the same time, that does not mean that we don't punish those who have offended, because you see, as one of the theories of punishment is to cause deterrence.
Right.
So we must punish those who have done offensive
Can
acts.
I ask you a question which is pertinent, because we're talking about behavior change now? Okay, it's to both of you. This organization that you work with, do you have, this is a favorite question of mine, do you have a program that works with school children, universities? Because if you are talking about a system and getting people to understand these dire ramifications, the law, the practice of it, the implications, you understand it well. Don't you think it would actually serve us even better if we started doing this thing when people are much younger, so that it's part and parcel of the way they live, as opposed to encountering the law the first time a policeman stops you? That's right. Yes.
Once you've gone afoul. Let's see. Pina, you can start.
Yes, I think even just to add on to what Vincent has been saying is, once the criminal justice system is strengthened, it actually deters people from committing crimes, and you will find that the crime rates are going down because you realize, I can't get away with this crime. Whereas currently, you kind of have this inkling of the devil on your shoulder. You're like, I could probably get away with this. But in terms of what we've been doing, we have been working with justice centers. We haven't been working directly with children in school. We have been working with universities, especially with the moot court debates. In fact, we just did one recently. We collaborated with the All Kenyan Moot Court competition. But we do work with justice centers. There are a few justice centers. We have about 5 that we work with, and we strengthen them. We actually do capacity building. Last year, we did a paralegal training where we trained them on everything from criminal law, civil, including employment, everything, the Constitution, because these justice systems have been the first point of call for a lot of people in the informal settlements. It has become so key for them. They go there and they'll get legal advice. What do I do when this happens? The person at the justice center is able to tell them where to go and what to do. Even referring them to the chief, like you said, one of the things the judiciary is doing is actually enforcing other traditional dispute mechanisms, which is actually in the Constitution, which is go to your chief, talk this through, so that you don't have, like someone very close to me recently got charged with a case of causing a disturbance because they had a small fight with their neighbor, and then the neighbor rushed off to court. And this friend of mine gets arrested in the middle of the night in front of their children for this small offense and spends 2 nights in jail. So, some of these things, they can be settled by the chief. You go to the chief, if, for example, the time when the police officer received this complaint, they should have said, have you spoken to the chief? Have you sat down and tried to figure out how to get a way forward without having to go into the criminal justice system? Because this will take a while and we should be dealing with other cases, to be very honest, So there are things that are being done out there by the judiciary, by ODPP, and even capacity building from the grassroots with justice centers. And of course, accountability. Just as you've been saying, we need to hold all of our state actors accountable.
You'd also talked about earlier, you'd mentioned among the things that are happening is that alternative to prosecution, and you gave the example of a case in Lamu. What does that mean? Is it that you will not be taken to court? You will then be charged locally? Explain. How is this working?
So, for example, for diversion, so if you have, let's take Lamu as an example. There are a lot of people who are in prison for using drugs, right?
Yeah.
But the core issue for them was that they're drug addicts. So what is the solution? They need to go into rehab, not to go into prison, because after they do or maybe let's say 6 months, because it's probably like a tiny amount that they were caught with, rather than them going back and committing the same offense, because they're still, addicts.
Addicted to drugs, yes.
Yeah, exactly. So instead, they were encouraging. Now what they do is, we've gone through, a prosecutor receives a file, they can see this is a person who has been charged with using drugs. They're in possession of a tiny amount. They're not actually selling. They have the evidence there. They will now recommend for diversion, diverting this case to, for example, now a rehab center, which is what I was saying. They had set up a Red Cross center there. So that's one example. Juveniles as well, doing community service. Instead of sitting in court, let's deal with the core issue. Why are you misbehaving? And that's what diversion is all about. Plea bargaining is a bit different. And that's where you've actually been charged for an offense. And you can negotiate with the prosecutor for a lesser sentence or a lesser offense, which has a lesser sentence for a particular reason. For example, you can assist the prosecution or the investigation of the crime. You can be a witness in the particular case because perhaps you were just a bystander or aiding and abetting. So these are some of the things that are being done by ODPP, and that also helps in curbing the current backlog of cases that we have.
I know these solutions that we're talking about, or making them alive to our situation, is not easy. I understand it's not easy, but I'm going back to the question I asked, and because when you have a culture such as the one that has engulfed the nation of this country, where we actually passively watch corruption taking place or participate in it, and we've normalized it. This is something exceptional, but we've normalized it. Those who've already gotten to the age where they can participate in it may be difficult to change, but there are those who haven't gotten to that point. Every time we talk about corruption, we're talking about corruption in almost every sphere of this particular society of ours in Kenya. No one is left out. And when you talk about trying to train people to get to understand the law, sometimes the opposite of what you're trying to achieve is achieved, because someone who understands the law now knows how well to subvert it, because they have a greater knowledge of it than they had before. Now, I have to ask, and I'm asking you now, dealing with young people and getting them to understand at that particular phase in their lives some of the importance of these things so that they can grow up understanding it. Is it something that you think is worthwhile and that should be pursued?
Yes. And what I think is that we should inculcate this knowledge within our curriculum in the schools so that we start this knowledge, we prevent rather than wait after it has been done. And so that then we react. So we should have this knowledge about corruption, studies on its effects, because it has a very wide effect, some which even the perpetrator cannot imagine. And I speak on this authoritatively because in years past, I was a technical committee member of the Presidential Task Force on Anti-Corruption. And one of the suggestions that were made was that with time, a curriculum on anti-corruption should be introduced in schools so that it is taught to people when they are still young. And that's where we even had discussions on the value system, and we looked at the effects of corruption, and it's just unimaginable. It's not just about the money that has been stolen, but the effect is just so wide. So yes, I think what should be done is that we have this growing from a very tender age, even us as adults showing a good example, because also we cannot be thieving and appearing in the news when the children are watching and expect that culture to change. So it's just about how we and that's why I was talking about a national conversation on this and agreeing how do we move forward with this. But yes, I think something can be done. But nonetheless, let us not also trivialize the little efforts that are being done. The fact that we are having this conversation, there is somebody listening. And it can change somebody's perception somewhere. So we'll not also overlook the little things that we can do. I'm reminded of Wangari Maathai, who talked about the little bird that saw a fire in the forest, and it would go and pick some water in its beak and come and pour on the fire. It was doing its bit. So it's our collective responsibility. Let us see in each and every sphere that we are in, what can we do as an individual, as institutions, and as society.
As we conclude, do you take walk-ins, people who maybe have an issue that they'd like assistance with at international justice missions? And then how do you deal with such cases?
Right, yes. So we take references from people. Of course, the walk-ins have been affected by the pandemic.
COVID, yeah.
Yes. But we take references, and what we do is that we screen it because we also don't want to be representing criminals. So we screen the information that we get. We have an investigation arm. So before the matter goes to the legal arm, we do conduct investigations just to be assured that some rights have been violated. And after a rigorous system, then we admit it into the process and we see the means that we can help.
We want to thank you very much for joining us today. Vincent Chahale is a senior manager, Justice System Interventions at the International Justice Missions, and Pina Ercolano, who is a program attorney at the same institution. Thank you very much for joining us and for sharing this information and shedding light on many things that are happening or ought to happen in our criminal justice system.
Thank you very much.
Thank you so much.
And it's time for us to also say thank you very much to our audience on KTN Home who've been with us since the top of the hour. The conversation continues into the next hour. We're here until 10 o'clock. Now, in the next hour, we'll be talking to a whistleblower, the person who brought out the case or the corruption allegations at the Masai Mara University. And what has happened to them since then? They've reportedly been terminated and been told, okay, you're no longer employed here. So what is it that they have seen happen, and how do we treat our whistleblowers? Join that conversation on SpiceFM. It's Nairobi, it's 94.4, Mombasa 87.9, 102.5 in Kisumu, Nakuru 96.0, 96.7 in Eldoret, 90.9 in Nyeri and Malindi. It's 97.7. Good morning.
Sugar and spice and everything nice, just the way you like it.
The Spice Drive.
Did you have a great day? I hope you did. I intend to make it better from 3 p.m. to 7 p.m. I'm going to be taking you home nice and chill. Everyone is welcome aboard. The hashtag is Spice Drive and, of course, SpiceFMKE on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter.
The Spice Drive with Monique. The official soundtrack of getting you where you need to be. This is the Situation Room. The only way to start your day. Spice up your life. Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself. Mornings done right. 94.4 Spice FM, Nairobi.
Continues. It's about access to justice. It's about improving our justice system. It's about ensuring that our justice system serves the people. There's very many things that our guests have said, improving the structure of the judiciary. Those are conversations that have happened, strengthening the oversight agencies or demanding greater accountability from these oversight agencies, embracing technology and ensuring that then our justice system is embracing technology from end to end. When you report to a police station, is it written in a physical OB or is it going into a system that then can be accessed by an officer elsewhere? When DCI officers are investigating, when a case has been reported, somebody has gone missing. So is it a call? Is it cable? Remember those days of cable from one station to the others, over, round and round, that, this is what is happening and therefore we need justice. How do we improve all these things? And I think it's very, very important that we can keep having these conversations because as we speak, there are people who are still waiting for justice. Either they are themselves in the justice system and they are suffering some punishment and at some point then they'll be declared innocent, or their loved ones who are suffering at home, or those who are offended by somebody. That person is walking free with some bond or cash bail, and the people who were offended, the victims, still haven't gotten their justice. These are conversations that I'm sure even you, when you're back into the studio, these are conversations that even you at TISA, you keep encountering.
We do. And for us, because we do a lot of budget monitoring, we look at it from the point of view of putting enough resources into the judiciary to make sure that they have the personnel, they have the facilities they need to be able to respond, because part of that really is administrative. If you don't have the money, judiciary is getting 16B, Parliament gets 42B. And you ask, what is it that Parliament is doing for us? And apart from them, kind of like this standoff between the judiciary and the executive, and the fact that Parliament has power of the purse, they're able to push more money into their own budget lines. So yeah, we need to put more money there. We also need a culture. We need to weed out those corrupt judges and clerks who hold those files, make them appear and disappear as per who is paying.
Yep.
Yeah. So where do we start?
From the beginning. From the people.
Where do we start?
Start from the beginning. Start from the people. Okay, ensuring that less people are likely to commit crime willingly, and then those that then commit crime, do we have investigative agencies that are able to deal with it? The law enforcement. If our police are not well equipped, are not well resourced, then we end up crowding the judiciary with very many cases, or we end up crowding the office of the DPP with so many files to deal with. So some of them will just filter in through the cracks.
Yeah. So you're saying it comes back to our political leadership, the party we elect.
I didn't say that, but okay.
It does, doesn't it? Because you're saying the judiciary can't work. It needs the money.
Let's hear the news and then we
Police.
continue. Good morning. It's 9 a.m.
Spice up your life. The latest news from around the world. 94.4 Spice FM.
This is Newswire on Davis Asset. Kenya and the European Union have unveiled a strategic dialogue framework through which they seek to step up their bilateral relations. The announcement was contained in a joint statement following a meeting between President Uhuru Kenyatta and his European Council counterpart Charles Michel. The strategic dialogue framework recognizes Kenya as a strong democratic partner of the EU in East Africa and Horn of Africa region, with potential for enhancing regional stability and performing a constructive role in peace and security. Our total confirmed COVID-19 positive cases are 179,876. These as 85 patients have recovered from the disease, 60 from the home-based and isolation care program, while 25 are from various health facilities countrywide. The fight against COVID-19 yesterday received a major boost after over 358,000 COVID-19 vaccines arrived in the country. Meanwhile, Mombasa County Commissioner Gilbert Kitio has cautioned residents of Mombasa against open disregard of guidelines put in place to curb the spread of COVID-19. Kitio says the locals must strictly observe COVID-19 protocols if the county is to reverse the current trend where the number of new infections has been on the rise. A 43-year-old man appeared before the Cabernet Law Courts for allegedly defiling a minor. Geoffrey Omose, a local tailor and a guitarist at one of the churches within Cabernet, is accused of defiling the 17-year-old girl who is a student. He was released on a 200,000 shillings cash bail or a surety of the same amount. And all taxpayers are being urged to file their 2020 income tax returns prior to the June 30th deadline. Kenya Revenue Authority says it will open its services longer to serve all its customers better, including over the weekend. You have 7 days left to the deadline. And Safaricom has launched the M-Pesa system through the M-Pesa app, which has been upgraded. The system will now allow you to add personalized messages to the money you send or the reason for sending. You can also use the app even if you do not have data. This is Newswire. I'm Dennis Aseto.
94.4 Spice FM.
Okay,
Nairobi.
so still hot and heavy on Mombasa Road, in and outbound today. We're also seeing that Uhuru Highway all the way from the Nyeri Stadium roundabout through to Westlands, still doing that thing that it has been for the last few days and likely to continue for some time. Has the president landed is a question. Not quite yet. Mombasa Road traffic, the current situation, Kappa all the way to Mlolongo out towards General Motors, snaking along very, very slowly today. Langata Road coming through to the Timor roundabout, Kiambu Road, between 6:30 and now is still an absolute mess as you try to join the Thika Super Highway coming out of Jogo Road towards Landis and into the CBD industrial area. That's another story. So today is that traffic day, smack in the middle of the week, and this is what we're dealing with. So we're just going to have to keep it patient and see what happens. In about an hour or so, run into something, let us know. Find an alternate route, let us know as well. How can you do that? SpiceFM KE on Twitter and via text on 40127.
This is the Situation Room, the home of hard-hitting political commentary and penetrating insights about the state of the nation. This is a talk radio experience like no other. The Situation Room, a place for hard truths, debates, and elevated conversations. The Situation Room, witty, political, engaging, deep, controversial. In the room, we have C.T. Muga, researcher, academic, seasoned political observer, a fountain of wisdom in these politically uncertain times. Ndu Oko, Nigerian by birth, Kenyan by choice, communications expert, Pan-Africanist, a truth seeker and believer in people power, and Eric Latif, agent provocateur, the man in the chair, seasoned journalist, news hound, a man who believes in punching up, not down. This is the Situation Room, the only way to start your day.
4 minutes after 9 o'clock. The conversation continues into the fourth hour. Let's begin with the day's proverb.
A happy man marries the girl he loves. A happier man loves the girl he married.
Happiness.
Marriage counseling. Well done. Marriage encounter. Hey.
Kubali
Huh?
na utakuwa na furaha.
Words of wisdom.
Stop sitting there, you're smarting and saying, oh, but you see, I was forced into this. Oh, I didn't even laugh. Oh,
Grass is always greener.
Yes, just
Always greener.
just be happy with your situation, and your happiness shall be added. More happiness shall be added unto thee.
You need to sound happy saying that, though.
Happiness is within.
You're saying that so fatalistically. You're like,
well done.
Are you sure you want to say that?
It's like, okay. Yeah, so let me just be happy.
Like, yeah.
Just accept. And once you accept, that's when you'll be happy.
Yes, and even if you're not happy,
Just act as if
keep
you're happy.
upsetting. You will eventually be happy.
Truth be told, I go for Dave Chappelle's take on marriage. It's a ridiculous contract. Why would anyone want to sign it? But we continue to do so. So yes, then we'll be stoic about it. But I'm with Dave Chappelle.
It's a curse. Today is International Whistleblower Day, right? And it's also International Day of Public Service, celebrating public service. A couple of months back, was it last year or was it 2019 when this case was first highlighted, of allegations of abuse of office and misappropriation of funds at the Masai Mara University, and the person who spoke about this was not among the people who say, okay, don't show my face. He was like, all right, no, I'm coming out. I'm going to come out openly and say, I am the one who's saying this, and this is why I work. This is what I've gone through. This is what I have seen. This is what I've encountered. And this is where I've tried to raise the issues of concern. And I'd like this matter to be known to the entire public. And he used to work he's been working at the university, CPA Spencer Sankale. The case was taken up by investigative agencies. The case has also even been taken to as far as, I think going to court. But the University Council has reportedly, recently, decided to conduct some investigation and come back to Mr. Sankale and told him, you don't need to keep working here. And so, as we look at Whistleblower Day, as we look at what happened with the Goldenberg whistleblower, as we look at what has happened to the other whistleblowers in this country, do we actually treat whistleblowers as people who have serious good intentions for the country? They mean so well for the country. They are such patriots that they want to come out and say, no, this what's happening here is wrong. Let's correct it. Or do we look at them as a nuisance? As people who just want to bring down governments or bring down administrations or bring down their bosses? How do we treat them?
It depends. Is this a private or public university?
Very public.
You can't get more public.
Can't get more public than Masai Mara University.
And even if it was private.
Well,
But it's public.
It's public.
Yes.
So ni pesa.
I was just saying that.
Ni mali ya umma.
Yes.
You see, ni mali ya umma.
Yes, it is.
So if the board.
Even if it wasn't public, right?
True.
There are shareholders, and then the shareholders have appointed a board, and the board has hired a CEO, and the CEO has hired management. Now, if an employee sees that something management is doing is wrong, should they not be raising that issue with the shareholders of the company or the board of the company? Should they be punished for raising issues that are happening in the organization, especially those issues are not really towards what the organization is all about, which is making a return to them?
They've obviously turned around and they're victimizing the whistleblower, which is, indicative that the board, which is it's a very poor reflection on the board.
Yes.
Because then you...
What seems to be
why
implicit...
would they not want...
Yes, what is implicit is that they may be complicit.
Yeah.
Right.
You see, you ask yourself, the alternative, does this person just make this thing up? Did they just want to create a problem? But why, when they know full well what the ramifications would be? And why now? And why insist? And why say, I have the evidence, and here it is? And why is there no discussion on the details that this gentleman keeps bringing up? It reminds me of a gentleman who worked for the Kenya Airports Authority at the time when we had said no more airlines coming from the great country of China. Lo and behold, picture taken, an airline from that very country, whistleblower, spoke about it. Next day, lost job. Now, and you're thinking, wait. What did this person do that would warrant him losing the job? He merely stated, we've said this, but this is what's happening here. Now, on a larger scale, this thing looks like it is just, should we say, a storm in a teacup. It isn't. There is a law in in the US that most people are not aware of, but every time you hear it happened in the Moi era, you had certain government officials who are banned from visiting the US. We've had, every once in a while you hear a number of people, they are mentioned, and it's not just them plus their families. There are people who've complained about why they're bringing the wife and the children. That's the whole point. It's supposed to be impunitive. So you target people of high net worth who seem to have been involved in what amounts to corruption or corrupt acts. The Magnitsky Act, signed by Obama in the year 2012. That was the whole purpose. You want to discourage people by ensuring that there is a law that will mark you. The moment you've been marked and there's evidence that you've been involved in this, you're not going to the US, you're not transacting anything. Stop. End of story for you. Now, that is an example. It took a long time from the year 2009 to 2012 for it to be enacted. But can you imagine the effect it has on people who are known to be perpetrators of such things? Now,
so are you implying that the board is hitting back for fear of the repercussions that will fall upon them? Or are they hitting back because their interests may be?
I'm saying that this particular board
jeopardized.
does not seem to understand the possibility of the full ramifications of their act. They are still acting in the normal Kenyan understanding that because I'm in authority, I have impunity.
And then this case has been in the public domain since 2019.
Yes. Yes.
They would have tried to rectify things.
See, this is their way of trying to rectify things by getting rid of the individual. Are you not
The
seeing?
individual's causing the problem.
As far as they're concerned, they're rectifying the situation.
They're rectifying the person.
Yes.
This matter has been taken up by organizations such as Amnesty International, whose executive director, Irungu Houghton, joins us on the phone. And the whistleblower himself, Spencer Sankale, is also on the line. So let's just say good morning to both of you, gentlemen. Spencer, good morning to you wherever you are. How are you?
Good morning to you. I'm happy to be here. Thank you.
Asante sana Irungu. Good to see you again.
Good morning, everybody.
Morning,
Good morning, Irungu.
Spencer, so just let's hear it from the horse's mouth. This letter that you received on the 17th of June from the University Council, and what has happened since the first time you brought this issue to the public in 2019. Just give us a start from the letter and then take us back to the steps that have been taken on you or in the pursuit of justice.
Okay, thank you. I received actually the letter on Thursday, and I was actually shocked by the allegation. But prior to that, since the Mara heist in 2019. I have been severally moved in different capacities, but more so, I've had to sit in the car park for the last 9 months since 2020 September. I don't have an office, but I just sit on the car park, just reading my book, which is also a good thing. It emboldens and enlarges my broader view. Reading is healthy for the mind.
What do you mean, no office? What happened? Were you told you don't have access to the office, or were your duties taken away and you're told the only duty you have is you come at the once a year? What led you to drive into work and just sit in the parking?
After the heist, of course, there was a bit of, I would say maybe isolation or something, but then come 2020 by September, I had resigned from an acting position, but after that I was given a letter saying that maybe I should wait for the direction. So I had been going to work normally at 8, but I just sit in the parking and read my books.
Can you tell us a little bit more about this heist? What actually happened and what is it that you are highlighting?
Okay, during the heist and before that, there were a raft of issues that were happening that we realized, because I never did it alone. We had other people, goodwill, who were seeing that things were not working well for us, for both of us as individuals and for the institution. But the most traumatizing thing for me that I said maybe I've had enough, and maybe even whatever I had, because I believed it was sufficient. We had a lady friend who had a baby, and the baby was so young. She was born with complications of the heart. So NHF said they'll cater for the travel to India because it required the baby to be taken to India for specialized treatment. So she needed 2.5 million. NHIF took care of 1.5. We came together as friends, raised 500,000. But when now she needed the balance of 0.5 million, she did a letter to management, but it was rejected. She was told to refer to policy. So for me, that was the nail on the coffin, the last nail on the coffin, because I thought if the baby doesn't make it, then even if I'm 100 years, will I ever forgive myself? Because I knew what was happening. And mind you, on that day, when she's being told to refer to policy, somebody had already gotten like 4 million withdrawn. So that is what led me to say this is enough, and Mara heist happened.
First of all, I think I would like to applaud, and I think most people applaud your courage in standing up, because I think there are many people in your situation. You have your own commitments, your own life to look after, and you've taken this courageous stand, and you've also been steadfast, including parking in the car. Complete courage, and well done for that. And I'm grateful to institutions like Amnesty and TI for standing with you. But what, we are sitting here thinking there are procedures that are supposed to be followed. And you're talking about huge amounts of money being withdrawn and decisions being taken. What would you say is at the center of this rot, and what do you hope to achieve by blowing the whistle?
For me, actually, I believe, first of all, whatever we were doing that job, and I insist we, because we were many. we were just doing our job. That is the normal job that every profession should uphold. This duty to patriotism. Because now, if we all fear and we can see things, we don't have a medical cover, we see the bad roads, we see we don't have social protection, and we keep the OE mentality. So we really need to eliminate that fear and build confidence as we build partnerships, because the support mechanism is there, and I believe that if you do the right thing and you do your profession and your duty as enshrined in our constitution, and you add in a sense of patriotism, then I don't think I'm a superhuman. I'm just doing what is right and what needs to be done.
Spencer, what is your current situation with school, with the institution? Have you been relieved of your duties? Are you still continuing, or what exactly is happening now? That's the first part. And then a lot of the things that you reported as having happened at that time, to the best of your knowledge, are they still going on?
Well, from that day, I received a dismissal letter. So as of now, my legal team is working on it. But I received my dismissal letter from Thursday. And so to speak about duties, I think I've not had any duties since Mara High, because it has been a roller coaster of things, but we keep the faith, and I believe that we and I will help to inspire other people to come up and other professions, because I believe this is just one accountant and we are 23,000 of us. So I believe even other professions, actually, they can, if they chipped in, then we will not be where we are currently.
As a CPK, you're
CPAK, yes.
CPAK, you're part of the institute. Has the institute come to your support, and what has been the support of your family? Where do you get the courage to fight on?
I can tell you this, my professional body has been steadfast, has stood with me, and has really been very supportive. And together with Amnesty International, Kenya, and Transparency International. Because even last year, we had, early this year, I think, we had a campaign to encourage accountants to come up and raise issues with the Wapinduru campaign that had been very successful, and it has actually emboldened other accountants. As it is now, we believe some of them, even if they are not coming out as I did, they are really reporting malpractices, and something is happening. On the part of the family, I would say Amnesty International has really been very helpful to me and my nuclear family, and I can tell you I'm as safe as before. And as it is now, my professional body has also been defending me. And you can see even yesterday they came up and they issued a very strong joint statement, which I believe will go a long way in ensuring the safety and security of other whistleblowers like myself.
And let's bring in Irongo now at this point. So
Yes.
the Institute of Certified Public Accountants of Kenya, Amnesty International Kenya, and Transparency International Kenya have been working together on this particular case of CPA Spencer Sankales. Irongo, you have now even penned an open letter to the University Council. Just tell us the details. What are you telling the University Council? What have you seen that the University Council is doing? And from where you sit, even from the legal expertise that the three organizations now have, is the University Council performing an illegality by dismissing this gentleman?
First of all, let me just also, extend my sense of admiration for Spencer Sankale and the other whistleblowers of Masai Mara. Spencer was not the only whistleblower. There have been a number of them. Many of them chose to remain anonymous. But Spencer obviously has become the face not just of the scandal of Masai Mara, but really the face of whistleblowing in this country. And it is for that reason that he is receiving a lot of support, whether it be from the University Students Association of the Masai Mara University, who spoke yesterday, or the Kenya University's Lecturers Union, KWASU, that also spoke on this matter. We had an emergency meeting with the ISPAC leadership, the chairperson, and also the executive director of Transparency International Kenya, and we have committed to essentially follow this case to its conclusion. And specifically in the letter that was released to the University Council yesterday, we made three, demands. The first is that we said that from our understanding, and now that Sankale has legal counsel, and very distinguished legal counsel, I may add, we will find out whether an illegality has been committed. But from what we have heard so far, he was not accorded a fair administrative hearing. And secondly, that as a state witness in a criminal case, this, in our view, could constitute intimidation of a state witness. So therefore, the law enforcement agencies, the criminal justice system needs to also rise and protect him at this time. And specifically, this is the National Police Service and the Director of Criminal Investigation, the Office of the Director of Public Prosecution. But I think this matter now needs to be escalated to the footsteps of the Cabinet Secretary of Education, because ultimately our concern is how is it possible that a whistleblower who has been proven to be professional, has been proven to be patriotic in terms of exposing upwards of 200 million shillings that were stolen by public officials of the university, and of course that case is still under review, so therefore I'm not saying that they are guilty at the moment, but nevertheless I think the fact that this has moved to court should tell us something, that the minister needs to look into the conduct of the council, and should it be found that the internal audit that has been recently done implicates not just the council but the acting vice chancellor, then they should be the council should be disbanded, and a new vice chancellor should be appointed who would essentially support the culture of integrity within that institution. We think this is no longer a matter just for Masai Mara University. It is now a public interest matter, and therefore we will not, as the free agency, allow this to essentially die down.
I'm listening to things that have come out even from the office of the prosecutor in this country, and it's oftentimes that if we can get information from Kenyans, even the EACC, if we can get information from Kenyans about things that are taking place of a criminal nature, then we are welcoming of such. But then we see actions like this taken against individuals, when they open their mouths to say that, look, there's something going wrong. CT's talked about the example that we heard from, Kenya Airports Authority and this gentleman who lost his job. Here is another one. What does this do then to the culture of people in the country who are saying, I know certain things are going on, but you know what? I don't want to lose my source of livelihood. Neither do I want to be victimized or threatened should anything come about as a result of this. Anybody else who then would have any kind of information in any other area today looks at things like this that are going on is going to withhold that information. And what kind of culture then are we imbibing here?
No, it's a critical question you're asking. I mean, I think this is the dividing line between chaos or a country. Yeah? This is it. We know that for every, corruption scandal, at least 10 people will know that it's happening. And it only takes one person to become a state witness, only takes one person to become a whistleblower, and then the system has the chance to catch this. A year ago, we asked, we did a joint survey with the ISPAC and Amnesty, and we asked a number of accountants several questions. And the opinion poll basically came back in very interesting terms. Let me just give you a couple of statistics. 61% of the accountants and the auditors that we surveyed said that they had had experiences of fraud in their workplace. 48% said that they have the skills and the knowledge to be able to blow the whistle and to essentially report fraudulent activities. But 50% of the same respondents said that they did not think that professionals should be held criminally liable. Let me give you one more. 30% of them said that bribery is a necessary transaction to be able to do business in this country. So I think what is really important for us to get is that, this is really an important conversation for the country, not just for the 23,000 auditors and accountants. That if we do not rise and become Spencer in our public spaces, whether it be public and private, and just for that, just a note on that one, because I think as we started this conversation, we made a distinction about corruption in public institutions and private institutions. I would completely agree that Chapter 6, the leadership and integrity clause in our Constitution, was not written for state agencies. It was written for the entire nation. And therefore, we have to raise a nation that is able to take action. Now, it doesn't necessarily mean that taking action means that you will be victimized. You can use any of the anonymous complaints and whistleblowing mechanisms that exist. Transparency have a number. The E-Ethics and Anti-Corruption Commission have been working on these issues. Amnesty, we are increasingly beginning to link the issues of human rights violations, like was, I think, as Sankali was speaking about, in terms of the absence of vaccines in our hospitals, the absence of drugs in our clinics, and the absence of textbooks, or even in our homes, the absence of social protection for those who have lost their jobs in COVID as a result of corruption. And I think when a head of state says we are losing 2 billion shillings a day, we have to take this seriously. The reason why we are losing the capacity as a country to thrive and to keep everybody dignified is because we do not take enough action on this issue. The narrative, I think, that has been generated that whistleblowers die poor is in some degree true. We do have the case of Nyeri, the patriot and nationalist who basically exposed the Goldberg scandal back in the 1990s. And of course, with limited support from Transparency International, he died really not recognized by the nation as a whole. But I also would remind the country that, there was a man called Jotham Mwaniki, who was a Kenyan national, I guess he was the Kenyan National Bureau of Statistics Secretary General during that same period. And this is a story I only learned after he died earlier this year. He was a statistician. And he chose not to falsify the report, the economic survey of that year, to essentially hide the fact that Kamlesh Patni, his associates, complete with a direct line into the office of the presidency, that they had essentially exported gold erroneously and essentially stolen something like 500 million shillings of public taxes and 10% of the gross domestic product. Now, Mwaniki went to, he went to his grave. His contract was not renewed. He was never taken to State House and given one of those awards and citations. But he is somebody whose name that we have to keep speaking of. And I believe today, Spencer Sankale is Mwaniki. He is Munyankei. And therefore, as Kenyans, we have to think about how do we, as people who believe that corruption is the single most danger to this state, it is a national security danger. How do we create a public defenders fund? And I'm glad to say that in the next 2 days, ISPAC, Transparency, and Amnesty will essentially announce a public defenders fund that will be available for people like Spencer Sankale and other whistleblowers, so that when they take action, they can be sure that their livelihood will be maintained, and that secondly, that they will be supported through the criminal processes that they have unleashed to protect this country.
Let's take a break at 27 minutes to 10. Having a conversation with Irungo Houghton, the Executive Director of Amnesty International Kenya, and CPA Spencer Sankale, who, until recently this week, was working for the Masai Mara University. He is one of those people who came out as whistleblowers of what they saw happening at the Masai Mara University. Case has been taken to court against the former VC, the Vice Chancellor. He has been dismissed. Amnesty International, Transparency International Kenya, as well as the Institute of Certified Public Accountants of Kenya, is taking issue with that particular action by the University Council, plus also supporting the whistleblower. Today is International Whistleblowers Day. We'll be back shortly. Good morning.
This is the Situation Room, the only way to start your day. Spice up your life. 24/7, around the world, non-stop. This is Spice FM. "24/7, around the world, non-stop. This is Spice FM."
Losing a loved one is never easy. The lingering memories, the what-ifs, but in all the gloom, we find ways of celebrating them. And here at the Standard Tributes, we aim to give your loved ones that befitting send-off. Visit www.standardmedia.co.ke/tributes today and post your loved one's tribute. In addition, get access to funeral services from our trusted vendors. The Standard Tributes, keeping memories alive.
24/7, around the world, non-stop. This is Spice FM.
Star Times brings you exciting soccer action from the 21st round of the Bet King Premier League this week. On Saturday, KCB versus Mathare United. On Sunday, Kariobangi Sharks meets Tusker FC. And on Wednesday, Gor Mahia battle Wazito FC as Tusker FC faces Western Steamer. All matches are live and exclusive to BTV, Channel 172 on decoder and 463 on satellite. Get connected today for only 999 shillings on aerial decoder and 2,699 shillings on satellite. Kamani Bay ni Star Times. Star Times, the new home of Kenyan football.
There are so many people peddling what is false and that it bears remarkable resemblance to what is true.
Politicians have their agenda, and their agenda is to use every opportunity to sell that agenda and to loot this nation.
I have seen major strides that are done in this country when we talk to each other as against talking at each other.
We start getting back into the tribal cocoons which were put to us by the colonial powers. You know, they gave us physical freedom but not mental freedom. We're still mentally colonized today into these cocoons of tribe.
Now, if you live in an area where it's difficult to find a dog.
He's a goat. I kid you not.
In which part of this country is it difficult to find a dog? So that you resort.
Nafandi umbo yako iko na pembe. Ni umba special.
The weather with Spice FM.
It's mostly cloudy in Nairobi at 16, highs of 21 and lows of 14 today. Light rain in Nyeri at 14, highs of 20 and lows of 13. 24 will be the high in Nakuru. It's sunny at 16 and sunny at 16 in Eldoret as well. Highs of 23 and lows of 10. 26 will be the high in a sunny Kisumu at 23. It's also sunny in Kakamega at 23, highs of 26, lows of 14, and we'll see highs of 29 in Mombasa today. Rain showers still continuing as well in Malindi at 27, highs of 26 and lows of 23. Mostly sunny conditions in Kampala, 22, highs of 25 today. Looking into Dar es Salaam, it's 29 degrees. That will be the high today. It's mostly sunny at the moment at 24. 12 degrees and sunny in Johannesburg. Highs of 16 and lows of 5. Raining in Lagos at 23. Highs of 28 and lows of 24 through the day today. We're looking at a rainy Kinshasa as well at 23. Highs of 29, lows of 21. 27 degrees in Beijing and getting warmer as they go into early evening. 29 the high, lows of 21. Paris is cloudy at 13. Highs of 17 and lows of 14. And a sunny London says hello this morning at 12. Highs of 20 and lows of 10. And very early into Wednesday morning in the Big Apple, it's 16 degrees. Clear conditions. Highs of 25, back down to lows of 16.
Sugar and spice and everything nice. Spice FM.
Spice up your life.
All right, dying down in some parts of the city right now. Mombasa Road not as heavy as it was just a while ago. I'm not quite sure what the situation is right now. Do tell, please, if it's getting better where you are right now. Jogo Road out towards Landis. Also, down just a bit, so I think that looks good. Kiambu Road, still a bit of a heavy situation there, connecting with Muthaiga Square, but we should be fine coming out of it. The bypasses, Eastern, Southern, Red Hill, not looking too bad right now. So, yeah, I think it's getting better, but we'll just have to keep an eye on things and see what happens when we're coming out of traffic hour. SpiceFM KE on Twitter through the days. Text on 40127.
Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself. Mornings done right. 94.4 Spice FM.
20 minutes to 10. Happy Whistleblower Day. And as we look back at what this day means, we are speaking with one whistleblower, CPA Spencer Sankale, who until recently was an employee of the Masai Mara University. He's among those that came out to the public and said there's something that's happening at this institution that is not according to what the law says. And this has even ended up in court where the former VC and others have been taken to court. However, Spencer himself has faced the wrath of the University Council where he got terminated just the other day. And this has brought in institutions such as Transparency International Kenya, Amnesty International, and the professional body Institute of Public Accountants of Kenya, who are also raising this particular matter and taking up the matter of Spencer's. Joining us on the line also is Irongo Houghton, the Executive Director of Amnesty International Kenya. Irongo, before we took the break, you were just talking about what you're soon going to announce to the public, which is the Public Defenders Fund, and where you establish a mechanism for people who'd like to support persons such as Spencer Sankale. But then I look back at, in 2008, there was the enactment of a law on witness protection. And if this is a state witness in a case, to what extent does the law protect people like Sankale? And what else do they get apart from just protection? Do they also get the support of enjoying continued livelihoods or securing their jobs, that nothing can happen to their employment as long as they are still state witnesses?
Definitely, I think the constitutional vision, of the new constitution essentially provided for for new laws related to anti-corruption. Actions that would stop corruption. And the Witness Protection Act is one of those, and the Witness Protection Agency. I think there are a number of concerns with the existing system. First of all, that, if you essentially blow the whistle on corruption prior to a criminal case starting, you are not eligible for witness protection because at that point you are a whistleblower, not a witness. You only get you only receive the protection of the Witness Protection Agency when the court case has actually started. So in the case of the Mara Heights, many of the whistleblowers did not have the protection of the state until they became witnesses in a criminal case and until a prosecution starts. And this is one of the biggest challenges really for fighting corruption, because in that period where you have essentially started the criminal justice system to work, you are not protected. And that is why it is important that civic organizations and the state look at the safety and protection of whistleblowers. And that is why a couple of members of parliament have two bills in parliament currently that have yet to be merged, that essentially will provide for protection for whistleblowers prior to them becoming witnesses. So I hope that kind of responds to your question.
These cases of whistleblowing One of the most amazing ones actually took place during a scandal that was known in this country as the Anglo leasing scandal. There was a gentleman by the name of Francis Lukurito who worked for the Central Bank of Kenya, and he was a superintendent. Now, part of his work had to do with just verifying export compensation forms. There was a CD3 form. One knew about it because it was in the papers for a long time. Now, he raised issues because he wasn't alone. Him and the department that he headed, they had come across forgeries. Now, this is a case that involved somebody by the name of Patni. And it involved very many people, from the person, the deputy governor of the Central Bank of Kenya, to the PS who was in that particular ministry. It went on. But if you look at the drama surrounding the life of this man, one of the things that the government of the day did, they accused him of being involved in the death of Masinde Muliro. Just for starters. And he was moved from one department, taken to jail, removed. He was actually being asked to talk about this same case 20 years later, when there was an inquiry into these affairs, and he spoke. But the net result was that he lost his job. They would try and there were letters indicating that he would be re-employed, removed again, meaning he went through an extremely difficult time. The sort of difficult time that anybody going through or anyone reading about would actually be deterred from whistleblowing. So we do have a history of people who've stood and actually said, this is wrong, and they stand by it. And I think the good thing is that with the advent of our new constitution, the things that we actually have, we are in a far better position than we were in 1992 when Mr. Francis Lukurito faced his ordeal. Right now, we are in a far better position to actually talk truth to some of these injustices that we see happening.
Totally agree. And I'd like to add on, just by bringing up John Githongo's case, Anglo leasing. He blew the whistle. He's possibly one of the most visible because he was then in government, and he blew the whistle as a PS in ethics and anti-corruption. Had to flee the country because of threats on his life. He eventually then did come back, and the issue, I can't remember what happened in terms of the legal court process, but because I think there was lack of evidence, the case eventually got thrown out, no surprise there. But then what happened is the countersuit, after fleeing the country, being away for a time, coming back, getting on with his life, there was then a countersuit against him for defamation from one of those implicated, namely Chris Murungaru, arguing that he was, talking about defamation as though this case... Anyway, without getting into the merits of that. And then the court ruled in favor of Chris Murungaru and slapped John Githongo with a fine of 27 million. And at the time when we came around as civil society to really just, challenge the justice and the
court ruling.
To challenge the ruling, we were then advised that this is one of the key strategies that rich individuals use to intimidate whistleblowers. Strategic litigation against public participation slaps. And there was we had kind of a whole big discussion saying that Kenya's legal system works against whistleblowing because the use of strategic litigation is still too easy to shut it down. So yes, Walter is extremely courageous, and I think then the Amnesty and TI Kenya very insightful, because you need a public defenders fund that's controlled by non-state actors. You need to give that solidarity, and my question, Irongo, is how do we build this culture? Because we have these very courageous individuals, and well done on bringing it out. We need to keep talking about them. How do we build the culture if ISPAC, if the professionals themselves don't believe that professionals who commit fraud should be prosecuted? And if, the professionals themselves do not believe they need to whistleblow, how do we build the culture in a context of this kind of victimization of whistleblowers?
I think it's another great question. I mean, I think, first of all, the court is an arena of contestation. right? So it is important as whistleblowers and the corrupt come before the court that they understand the legal framework. So making claims that cannot be substantiated in fact is always dangerous for everybody because you will be slapped with a defamation charge. So, I mean, the good thing about accountants and auditors is that they speak in numbers, and numbers most times don't lie. So keeping it very close to what actually is happening rather than what we think is happening protects whistleblowers every time that they engage in this process. And it allows them to continue speaking truth, but at the same time not being, being gagged by court orders. ISPAC is very committed, and I was with the chairperson, George Mukua, yesterday, and a couple of council members and the executive director, and they are very, very clear that they are drawing a line and will provide training and support for all their accountants who wish to take a stand in line with their profession. And again, Spencer's point, he's not doing anything extraordinary. He is essentially just exercising the oath of his professional ethics. We've somehow forgotten that the reason you have accountants, even the word accountant comes from the word to account. It is their role to essentially safeguard and act as stewards, both for private institutions and for public institutions. The other point I think that's important to raise is that ISPAC have actually developed their own separate funds for support for accountants, and they are doing this. And I think this is a major step forward by the council. I just really applaud the leadership of ISPAC for doing this. But they are essentially saying to their members, go out and protect the money. There is no point being called a chartered public accountant or a FCPA if you are not upholding the integrity of our institutions. So they have made this a professional standard for themselves. And I think it is now really the challenge to the rest of us who are not accountants, who are not auditors, to just say that, we actually have to choose a country or chaos. We have to choose between essentially, a country that disintegrates without vaccines, without social protection, without, an NHIS that, if you can imagine that, this is the primary moment for the National Health Insurance Fund to protect Kenyans against COVID. And it is the one thing that they will not protect you against. And I think this is the time that we really have to say, no, we want a country that works. We want a country that protects us. And definitely, we don't want a country in which the government looks the other way as public resources are stolen. And I think the good thing that we've got to look forward to in the case of Spencer Sankwale is that he has full cooperation of the Directorate of Criminal Investigation and the National Police Service and the Office of the Director of Public Prosecutions and the Ethics and Anti-Corruption Commission. And that is different. That is very different from the time, I think, of the Anglo-Leasing and the Goldenberg scandals that we all remember.
Spencer, if I come to you, CPA Spencer Sankwale, your own experience since the Mara heist in 2019 and what you've gone through as the investigations commenced, as the case went to court, as you were being looked at as a whistleblower, as the institution was treating you as it was treating you, from all the things that you've learned, what are the things that you would like to highlight as things that need to be considered by government and by the society in protecting whistleblowers?
The very first thing that I would really like the society, especially because we talk of a social fabric, we really need to ensure that our national ethos and the moral fabric does not disintegrate. Because once it's gone, then rebuilding it back it will be a whole ball game altogether. So for me, especially from speaking from a societal point of view, we are all told as young children we are born free, but it's what that is implanted in us that will determine the kind of nation that we will have. Because sometimes if you look at whistleblowing from my own analysis from the societal point of view, why is it that if a whistleblower is saying that something is not happening in the right way. Ideally, in an ideal society, that is the right thing to do. But it is inverted by the few who dine with the taxpayers or the public funds to mean that you should not be speaking, but which should not be the case. So from a societal point of view, we really need to ensure that our moral fabric remains intact as a nation. But speaking now from a government point of view and how the government agencies can help in to spruce up the issue for whistleblowing, I can tell you we have very good documentation internally in almost all government agencies. We have a whistleblower policy, but none of us who work in the public service maybe want to whistleblow because you are gagged with the Official Secrets Act and such acts that you are not supposed to speak or leak information to the public. But you see, some of the information is criminal in nature, and maybe even the people you are supposed to report to are not willing or don't have the capacity to ensure that things are done in the right manner. So I believe, apart from anonymity in reporting these issues, the government should also come, and more so the National Assembly, should ensure that the whistleblower bill is passed, so that maybe we feel that we are protected when we are really trying to safeguard the public funds, because the public is not there.
Right.
This is an opportunity that we've been given, and it's an honor actually to serve in government. But you see, if you are given that honor and you don't meet the end of your bargain, then we are not really being patriotic.
And apart from being protected, Spencer, I mean, you started all of this, and I believe one of the things that you said previously was to stop the stealing of funds, to stop corruption. So apart from even being protected as a whistleblower, would you say that your desire is to see that this rampant thievery that we see starts to stop?
Yes, that would be the end game, because people really need to earn their daily bread in a honest manner, because the thuggery and the thieving, so to speak, is way out of the normal. Yes.
And as we look back at this day, Whistleblower Day, and wanting everybody here has basically come up to say, Spencer, what you're doing is what you've done. It speaks highly of the character that you have, the kind of person that you are. And very many people ought to emulate you in terms of just the courage, in terms of the resolve, in terms of just deciding that this is the right thing to do and I shall do nothing else but the right thing. I think we just want to say thank you very much and well done for this. We stand with Transparency International, Amnesty, ISPAC, and all the others who are coming in support of your particular cause. Anything that people who would like to support this particular cause, Irongo, how can they contribute to this? How can they come in to support you?
Thank you very much. It's just great to hear the support from within the media, and particularly the standard group for this, because I think it really is the dividing line between a country and chaos. So specifically, we would invite people to follow the hashtag for the moment, hash justice for CPA Sankale, and the 4 is a number. We're using it very actively on all the social media platforms. And to follow Amnesty Kenya, Transparency Kenya, and also ISPAC, where they will get more information on how they can very practically support the idea of a public defender's fund. As it is World Whistleblowers Day, I think we can be proud and confident that we too, as Kenyans, have whistleblowers that we can talk about. They are not just in other countries, but they are alive and well. And they are also among us as ancestors, those of those that have passed on. And I particularly want to, because I think it's really important to say their names so that you get a sense of some of the people that have been active. If you give me a minute, I'm just going to read out some of the names that come to my mind as people who have brought dignity to this country. People like David Munyanke, Joseph Maniki, Jacinta Mwatela from the Goldenberg scandal, John Gidongo from the Anglo-Leasing scandal, Evans Joroge, the Meru University Secretary General who lost his life, essentially demonstrating that the University of Meru was misappropriate, or the leadership of the university were misappropriating financing. John Girashu, the journalist who pointed out that in the parliamentary reporting, they had left out money that could not be accounted for within the Ministry of Interior. Edom Uko, the immediate Auditor General Emeritus, who had no less than 15 attempts to have him removed before the end of his tenure, and he served with dignity. He served with an interest, with the public interest in mind, and is now retired. Hopefully, will take up another role soon.
Irongo, there are many.
But
there are many. We have 30 seconds to the end of the show, but thank you very much for acknowledging all those, and we want to acknowledge everybody else and all the other whistleblowers. Thank you for joining us today, Irongo Houghton, Executive Director, Amnesty International Kenya, and CPS Spencer Sankale, a whistleblower, a hero in this republic. Asanteni sana for joining us today, and happy Whistleblower Day. CT, 2 days proverb as we conclude.
A happy man marries the girl he loves. A happier man loves the girl he married.
Bas.
Wacha matangatango.
Wacha matangatango.
Yes.
Thank you very much for joining us. And Wanjiru, thank you for coming today.
Pleasure.
See you again soon.
See you then.
Asante sana. Have a lovely day, folks. It's now 10 a.m.